Han Li's Wuxia Adventures. That place was very beautiful, but staying there all the time was probably very lonely. At least Lin Feng wouldn't be able to do it. Lin Feng enjoyed cultivation. He wanted to become an extremely strong cultivator. He wanted to break through to the different cultivation layers in the hopes that he could soar into the heavens and never have to worry again. Little Feng, do you think that it was terribly boring for me to stay here for 18 years? Maybe even useless? Asked Yu Menghe while looking at Lin Feng in a soft and gentle way. Indeed. Replied Lin Feng while slightly nodding. He did think that way. Wait until you understand the lovesick forest better and we will see if you still think that way. Said Yu Menghe with a mysterious smile on her face which surprised Lin Feng. Could it be that that forest hid something special? I first want to show you a certain place. Said Yu Menghe without explaining anything. The three of them continued walking. The path was covered with a fresh and green grass. They were walking neither slowly nor fast through the forest. In front of Lin Feng appeared many trees. They looked extremely old, and the trunks were huge. 2 or 3 people holding hands wouldn't have been able to encircle them. Those trees were at least a few hundred years old and an ancient qi was emerging from them. They then took a few more steps, and a gigantic tree appeared in front of Lin Feng. It seemed like it was holding up the sky. It was a terrifying diameter of 10 meters, each of its branches was extremely solid, they were the sturdiest branches and roots he had ever encountered. That tree was 1,000 years old and gave off an ancient feeling. Lin Feng was astonished. At the top of the tree, there were some log cabins. They looked comfortable yet simple. Lin Feng looked at the log cabins, then his eyes followed the tree to its trunk and landed on a bench made from stone. There was a silhouette calmly sitting on that bench. That person had a chisel in his hand, he was calmly carving something onto the tree. Besides, next to that man, there was an image, and that man was carving it into the tree. When Lin Feng saw that person, he frowned but immediately after, he looked relaxed and smiled, he recognized him. Lin Feng started walking softly, without making any sound. He was walking towards that person. Meng Qing followed Lin Feng but in a flash Yu Menghe caught her arm pulled her back. She then put her finger in her mouth to tell Meng Qing not to make a sound, and then she smiled. Meng Qing nodded and stopped moving. She only calmly watched as Lin Feng arrived behind that person. Lin Feng was still not making any noise. He slightly bent over and looked at the chisel in the person's hand. That person was calmly carving each and every single detail onto the tree. That carving looked extremely clear and detailed. It really seemed like the sculpture was the original item. Too bad that your old father's cultivation was sealed, that's the reason I went back to Yangzhou City and became the head of the Lin clan. Sighed Lin Hai. Lin Hai had an unyielding personality. He had been extremely aggressive to Lin Ba Dao, Lin Hao Ran, and some other elders because they had bullied Lin Feng. Lin Hai was merciless too. He attacked Lin Hao Ran and killed an elder. Lin Hai was never a coward or a weakling. He had become the head of the Lin clan but had remained silent because his cultivation had been sealed and because of the secret regarding Yu Menghe. In the imperial city, everybody knew about the 4 outstanding cultivators who had amazed the entire country 18 years ago, and they even knew that one of them was carefree, unyielding and proudly soared into the heavens. However, Lin Hai controlled himself and remained hidden inside the imperial city all this time. Chapter 443, The Strange Place Thursday's first chapter. Likey, classes have started the dreadness. Also sorry about the last PMG chapter 1 passed out XD, alright, that's enough you two, stop talking about such sad things, let bygones be bygones. Said Yu Menghe indifferently while shaking her head when she heard Lin Feng and Lin Hai. Then, Yu Menghe and Meng Qing joined them. Lin Hai looked at Yu Menghe and smiled, alright, let's not talk about the Lin clan. Those things belong to the past so let's forget about them. But little Feng, don't worry, the Lin clan still has hope, the blood of the Lin clan will continue flowing into the veins of the new generations. There you go again, said Yu Menghe while glaring at Lin Hai, which surprised him, but he then immediately smiled wryly. When Lin Feng and Meng Qing saw Yu Menghe and Lin Hai laugh, they laughed too. They looked like they were still deeply in love, a simple and tender love. Father, you came to the imperial city, why didn't you tell me anything? Asked Lin Feng, who was surprised. Little Feng, do you know how your father left the imperial city in the past? Asked Lin Hai to Lin Feng, which surprised him. He remained silent and replied, that guy from the imperial clan, indeed. 18 years ago, your mother had just given birth to you, but Duan Ren Huang sealed my spirit and my cultivation, then he forced me to leave the imperial city. He forbade me from entering the imperial city, not even a single step. Back then, I felt so humiliated. I hated him, but because of you, I chose to ignore the humiliation and return to Yangzhou City. I intended to stay there forever, I had decided never to return to the imperial city again, but you changed my mind. In the end, I stopped caring about such things and broke my promise to never return. So I returned and found your mother, said Lin Hai slowly. Apart from you and those who live here, nobody else knows that I am in the lovesick forest. If Duan Ren Huang knew that I had returned to the imperial city, he would come to kill me. What I am trying to say is, if your life wasn't in grave danger, your mother would have never revealed herself and brought you here to see me. When Lin Feng heard Lin Hai, he remained silent. So that's how it was. His father had gone to the imperial city to find his mother, and it was extremely dangerous. His father returning to the imperial city was an absolute secret and he couldn't show himself to anyone. Duan Ren Huang is one of the 4 geniuses from 18 years ago? Asked Lin Feng, a cold light was in his eyes. Duan Ren Huang, what a powerful name, surprisingly his name contained the characters, Huang. Indeed, that's him, Duan Ren Huang. He was a very ambitious person. Now, he's probably the one who is really controlling Xueyu, said Lin Hai coldly. Duan Ren Huang had injured them and forced Lin Hai to leave and never return. Their agreement was that Yu Menghe wasn't allowed to leave the imperial city and Lin Hai wasn't allowed in the imperial city, otherwise, the Duan clan would have continued to hunt them down. The one who really controls Xueyu, whispered Lin Feng. It was him, he hunted down his parent 18 years ago and disappeared afterwards. Because of him, Lin Hai was forced to enter the imperial city in secret, not daring to show himself. Little Feng, don't think about those things too much, maybe Duan Ren Huang is not even in Xueyu anymore. With his talent and cultivation level, he could have decided to move to a better place with stronger cultivators, he probably didn't want to stay in a tiny country like Xueyu. His goal was probably Xueyu or even the vast and endless continent of the 9 clouds. Added Yu Menghe, to which Lin Feng slightly nodded. Indeed, if 18 years ago things had happened differently, Lin Feng's father, Lin Hai, would have probably left Xueyu, he would have followed his martial path and grown even stronger. Lin Feng, even though Duan Ren Huang hadn't shown himself for a long time, there is another person whom you should also be careful of. Added Yu Menghe. Whom? The Crown Prince, Duan Wu Dao. Replied Yu Menghe in a grave tone. She then continued, Duan Wu Dao has the same blood as Duan Ren Huang, they have identical temperaments too. Duan Ren Huang and Duan Wu Dao are very close. Besides, Duan Wu Dao is now ranked first amongst the 8 high officials, just like Duan Ren Huang was in the past, they have terrifying strength and shocking talent. Duan Wu Dao, whispered Lin Feng. The Crown Prince Duan Wu Dao was wild and unruly, aggressive and violent, if anyone offended him, he would kill everyone involved, but if people were nice to him, he would treat them well, he was extremely aggressive when provoked. I will be careful. Nodded Lin Feng. Yu Menghe smiled and nodded while looking at Lin Feng, she then added, sounding confident, Little Feng, don't put too much pressure on yourself. You're only 18 years old and you can already kill cultivators of the 4th Xian Qi layer. You're much stronger than your father and me at your age. Apart from Duan Wu Dao, none of the other high officials have more potential than you. You will be stronger than all of them soon enough, it's only a matter of time. Your objective should be to reach the top of the 8 high officials. The top of the 8 high officials. Lin Feng raised his head and gazed solemnly into the distance. His objective needed to be more than that. Maybe his natural abilities weren't high enough, maybe he wasn't very strong, it didn't matter, he always needed to aim for higher goals. If he didn't have the talent, he would pay in blood, sweat and tears to make his dreams come true. He had to keep climbing higher, until everyone that looked down on him, was forced to look up at him and watch him soar into the heavens. It was the same as with Chu Zhanpeng, nobody thought that Lin Feng could compete with him. In front of Chu Zhanpeng, he was nothing more than an insect. However, Lin Feng had never considered Chu Zhanpeng as his goal, he just focused on becoming stronger to protect the ones he cares for. He broke through every hurdle which stood in the way of his martial path. Duan Wu Dao, the crown prince, cannot have Xueyu as his goal, thought Lin Feng. If Duan Wu Dao had had Xueyu as his goal, he would have become dispirited and would have lost the motivation to grow stronger. Duan Wu Dao was able to push everybody aside because he always pursued the goal of becoming stronger. Little Feng, I will bring you to a certain place. Yu Meng, he suddenly said mysteriously, which surprised Lin Feng. A certain place? Could it be that there was something incredible in the lovesick forest again? Lin Feng looked at his father Lin Hai, he was smiling, which made Lin Feng even more surprised. All right, replied Lin Feng while nodding, he was truly curious. Yu Meng, he led the way and they started walking through a dense forest. Lin Feng and Meng Qin calmly followed from behind. They crossed a distance of about 1,000 steps and in front of them appeared a few trees which were around 1,000 years old as well. There were 4 ancient trees, this place was extremely dark, the trees were blotting out the sky and not a single light could enter their domain. Vines had already wrapped around the trees. In the middle of those 4 trees, there was surprisingly a cave going into the ground, one couldn't see into the cave though, it was very strange, it looked extremely deep. Yu Meng, he took a step forwards and walked into the cave. Lin Feng was stupefied. Little Feng. Come, said Yu Meng, he while turning her head and smiling at Lin Feng. After that, Lin Hai entered the cave too. Lin Feng looked at them and then suddenly, Yu Meng, he and Lin Hai disappeared from sight. They disappeared inside the cave in an instant without any warning. What is this? Lin Feng was dumbstruck. How strange, 2 people had just disappeared as if they were never there to begin with. It must be an illusion. Suddenly whispered Lin Feng. It had to be a form of witchcraft. Only witchcraft could lead to such a perfect illusion and alter the physical rules of the world. The path of witchcraft was in perfect harmony with nature, it could borrow the strength of the earth and the sky to reshape the land. One could use it to confuse, or to create illusions or even to kill people. Meng Qing, let's get in too, said Lin Feng while pulling Meng Qing's hand. They then slowly entered that cave. Inside that cave, everything was different. Meng Qing and Lin Feng just had the feeling that they were fainting, everything was spinning around them and suddenly, another place appeared around them. It was a bright and cloudy sky, there was a desert and the sunlight was trying to pierce through the clouds to illuminate the earth below. How is that possible? Where are we? Lin Feng's heart started pounding violently. He was astonished. Meng Qing was astonished too. When they saw how vast that desert was, they had the feeling that they were still in an illusion, but on the other hand, it felt too real, how could it be an illusion? Where are we? Lin Feng tried to keep clear-headed and asked that question to Yu Meng he and Lin Hai. Everything was too astonishing, it was so incredible that Lin Feng and Meng Qing couldn't believe it. Little Feng, the first time your mother brought me here, I was even more astonished than you. said Lin Hai while laughing. He then continued slowly, "You're right, it's not an illusion, we're just in another location. This is a strange place we found connected to the lovesick forest." Chapter 444, Lin Feng's Power and Influence. Thursday's last chapter of the day. What a strange place. Lin Feng shivered. This place belonged to the real world, it wasn't an illusion. After remaining silent for a while, Lin Feng sighed. This world was full of mysteries. Things Lin Feng could never imagine continued to happen. Having come to the continent of the 9 clouds after his death was already astounding. Besides, in the continent of the 9 clouds, Lin Feng didn't know how many extremely strong cultivators there were. Lin Feng had no doubts that there were cultivators who could destroy mountains and empty oceans, but what he was wondering about was, would he be strong enough to meet them? "Are there people here like us?" suddenly asked Lin Feng. Lin Hai nodded and said, "Yes, and many of them also practice cultivation, just like us. This place is still in the continent of the 9 clouds, but it is a long, long way from Xueyu. The cave enabled us to come here." "You mean like teleportation?" asked Lin Feng, stupefied. In his previous life Lin Feng had heard about teleportation in books and had seen teleportation in movies. "You know about teleportation?" A flash of shock passed through Lin Hai's eyes. He was surprised. They were far from being at the level of teleporting themselves. There were some rumors about it though. Lin Hai had read about teleportation in an ancient book, but surprisingly, Lin Feng knew about it too. Teleportation really exists, thought Lin Feng, surprised. Considering Lin Hai's words, there were really some people who used teleportation in the continent of the 9 clouds. But in ancient books, people teleport themselves from one place to another, feel dizzy and nauseous. However, I have passed through the illusion and into the cave many times, but I have never had such a feeling. It feels very smooth each time without any strange sensations. It seems like the kind of teleportation they mention in books is not entirely the same as ours. Maybe our teleportation is not really a teleportation spell at all, I'm not sure either way," said Lin Hai. Lin Feng was speechless. If that wasn't a teleportation spell and the cave illusion enabled them to move from one place to another, then what exactly was it? Lin Feng suddenly turned his head around and gazed into the distance. The desert was vast and boundless. There was absolutely nothing. Lin Feng was surprised. "Father, how are we going to get back?" "Very easy. You just need to go stand where you arrived in the first place, close your eyes and think about going back. That is why I am saying that it doesn't seem like a teleportation spell. In the ancient books, they talk about 2 types of teleportation, a return teleportation, a one-way teleportation. For the return teleportation, the 2 places have a gate so people can cross back and forth. In the case of one-way teleportation, there is no possibility of returning, but here, we used an illusion to travel here, then we just have to think of the location to return." How strange. Lin Feng didn't understand how it worked at all. He then asked again, "Father, have you ever walked around here? Have you ever asked people what the name of the place is? Are we still in the Xueyu region? Even though those people practice cultivation too and speak the same language as us, their personality and mentality is very different. They are very stubborn, so to say. There is a city, its name is Jinya Hage, its army is extremely strong and they control everything in this region. The region is like a fortress, its inhabitants are only allowed to live inside that city. For example, they cannot go out and wander the desert freely. As far as other places are concerned, they call the outside world the ruins. They cannot take even half a step outside of their city." The ruins? They think the outside world is just made of ruins? Asked Lin Feng. "I don't know. Maybe they haven't been out of their city before," said Lin Hai while shaking his head. People there have absolute faith in their government and city. At such a level, it cannot even be called nationalism anymore. They have absolute faith in their beliefs. They believe from the bottom of their heart that the outside world is composed of only ruins. Nobody dares to question that statement. nobody dares oppose the government of Tianya Hage, their religion is omnipresent in their thoughts. Besides, they have never heard of Shuiyu, they only know that they are in the continent of the 9 clouds. What kind of horrible place is that? Lin Feng was speechless. Nationalism, religion. Nobody dared call their beliefs into question. Nobody dared oppose the government. They didn't allow anyone to go to other places and have a look. Little Feng, don't judge people and their beliefs. I discovered that place more than 10 years ago, but I still haven't really understood its culture. I just know that we are in a distant corner of the continent of the 9 clouds. After finding that out, I stopped caring. I just came here to cultivate. Yu Menghe smiled and said to Lin Feng, Little Feng, look. Yu Menghe was pointing at something in the distance. There was a large group of people running towards them. Little Feng, look over there too, said Yu Menghe while pointing to another place. Lin Feng turned his head and saw more silhouettes appear in the distance. 18 years, I didn't waste any of that time. All of the women I took in were poor and living miserable lives. I brought them to Lovesick Forest and taught them cultivation. Now, not only do they know cultivation, but they were all taught witchcraft too. They have all spent over 10 years training, and thanks to their efforts, they are all strong enough to help shoulder our responsibilities. Some of them even have strength surpassing the Xian Qi layer. Coupled with their witchcraft, they are all extremely strong. At that moment, the woman who was referred to as the most beautiful woman of Shuiyu didn't look soft and gentle at all. Sharp and cold lights filled her eyes. 18 years ago, because she didn't have the enough strength and because her support abandoned her, she was torn away from her husband. She hadn't even been able to see her husband and son for too long. Yu Menghe didn't want such a tragic situation to ever occur again. Therefore she sheltered those girls and transformed them into powerful women. She taught them cultivation, and the girls had become a source of power and influence for her. She had built that for herself. And for her son, Lin Feng. Now, her son was together with her. She would feel less anxious if Lin Feng was protected by her secret troop of women. That way, Lin Feng would have a source of power and influence to support him at all times. He wouldn't only have his mother's power. Lin Feng would no longer get bullied and humiliated because he had no power or influence, like when the Wanshou sect continuously threatened and tried to kill him. If Lin Feng had this troop of women at his command, Lin Feng wouldn't have needed to fight at all. Those women would have slaughtered the Wanshou sect to the very last disciple. Lin Feng nodded. He had already witnessed how strong these women were. The first time was in the Lovesick Forest, when they crippled Yu Qiu's cultivation. The other time was when 6 women, all of them only in the Xian Qi layer, used the colorful ribbons to completely bind the old man's body. They had severely injured him and restrained his every movement, allowing Lin Feng kill him with ease. Their strength was terrifying. Some were even much stronger than Lin Feng. Little Feng, all of them are now yours. Let them be your source of power and influence. Use them to make the entire country of Shuiyu tremble in fear, said Yu Menghe, which astonished Lin Feng. Mine. But, do you think that with my strength, I still need power and influence to support myself? Said Yu Menghe, interrupting Lin Feng. From the beginning, when I taught them cultivation, it was exclusively for you. If someday you don't need them, just free them from your service and let them live their own lives. When Lin Feng heard Yu Menghe, he remained silent. Indeed, Yu Menghe, with her strength, didn't need them. She had raised them especially for Lin Feng. Lin Feng would be able to have more power and influence with them acting as his support. Alright, I can start with my plan then, whispered Lin Feng. He then immediately nodded and said, Mother, thank you for giving them to me. Chapter 445, Break the Spell. Haku, Lord of the Edit. Tuesday's chapter. It had been over 2 years since the Wanshou sect, the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, Ice and Snow Mountain Village and the Haoyu sect acted together to destroy the Yunhai sect. The elders of the Yunhai sect and Patriarch Nan Gongling sacrificed their lives to save Lin Feng. They all fought with their lives on the line to protect him. It was a tragic yet moving event. The blood of the Yunhai sect formed a river which ran through the stormy gorge. Once Lin Feng and Meng Qing had gained enough strength, they would return to see that river of blood. Since the Yunhai sect was destroyed, Lin Feng always carried the ring of the patriarch. He wanted to bring the Yunhai sect back to life. He wanted to avenge all past grievances. All the members of the Yunhai sect were sacrificed to save Lin Feng. Even after gaining tremendous strength, Lin Feng could never forget the promise he made. Since the bloodbath on that day, Lin Feng had never forgotten the Yunhai sect. He remembered each moment clearly. Lin Feng would have his revenge. It was only a matter of time, nothing more. Lin Feng had already broken through to the second Xian Qi layer, but relying on his abilities, he could easily kill cultivators of the third Xian Qi layer, and killing people of the fourth Xian Qi layer was only slightly more difficult. Besides, he had a strong, battle-hardened army behind him, and at that moment, he also received the powerful women raised by Yu Menghe. With all of these people under his control, it was a good opportunity to deal with matter regarding the Yunhai sect. Concerning those who had destroyed the Yunhai sect, none of them would be able to escape judgment. Lin Feng raised his head and looked to the sky. The sky reminded him of the deep look that always appeared in Protector Kong's eyes, which was always in contrast to Protector Bei's soft and gentle smile. He could remember how Nan Gongling didn't waste any words. Lin Feng was moved and touched by the lives that were sacrificed to protect him. He would never forget their faces as they opened a path for him. Back then, Lin Feng had only broken through to the Ling Qi layer. He was still an immature young man, but Protector Kong and Protector Bei still sacrificed their lives for him. Protector Kong, relying on his shadow spirit, could have easily escaped, but he hadn't. He had stayed and fought with all his power, allowing Lin Feng to escape safely. Besides, Protector Bei accompanied Lin Feng to the temple, but he turned back and chose to die while fighting with the others. Lin Feng felt like he was reliving all of the moments that lead him to this day. Duan Tian Lang. There was a name which would remain in Lin Feng's mind. Lin Feng could see Duan Tian Lang's mocking face as he closed his eyes, causing his expression to suddenly become colder. Duan Tian Lang had lived far too long. Lin Feng needed to kill him. Besides, the holy courtyard of Shuiyu also needed to be erased from existence. When Yu Menghe heard that Lin Feng accepted the women, she smiled. In Shuiyu, many people wanted Lin Feng dead. Lin Feng now had even more power to protect himself. Even if he only had a few of them to protect him, he would be in no danger. Little Feng, their troop has 36 in total. Each of the 36 are extremely strong and have practiced witchcraft. You can deploy them in a 6x6 formation, which will allow them to cast 6 spells. You can also deploy them in a 4x9 formation and they can cast 4 strong spells or 9 weaker spells. In these formations, they will combine their power to unleash a spell. If you use 9, their power will combine into a single spell which will allow them to unleash their strongest spells. It allows them to fight with maximum strength. Yu Menghe explained to Lin Feng. Of course, Lin Feng was going to have them under his control, so he needed to know what abilities they had. When Lin Feng heard Yu Menghe, he was a bit surprised. They could all use witchcraft and there were 36 women in total. They had the power to slaughter an endless number of strong enemies, especially as they grew stronger. I created this as a special unit designed to use witchcraft. They are all able to act and fight together in perfect synchronization. The second reason that I chose them was to free them from their tragic fates. After I took them in, they were reborn, they were given a second life in which they are all sisters. This bond that they form together also increases their ability to use witchcraft. Yu Menghe smiled and said, Lin Feng, do you want to give it a try? All right. Nodded Lin Feng. Immediately after, he started walking towards a group of women. There were 6 beautiful women wearing white clothes, they were sitting on the ground in a circle, their eyes were closed but a strange light was emerging from their bodies. The atmosphere of the desert was absolutely silent, and there was no wind to break the eerie atmosphere. Lin Feng was slowly walking towards the 6 women. He was about 10 meters away from them, then as he took another step, an extremely strong wind started to blow. It was ice cold and Lin Feng felt like the wind was piercing through his flesh. In the middle of the calm desert, a piercingly cold wind had suddenly unleashed itself on Lin Feng. But Lin Feng didn't stop walking forwards, he continued. The air continued to grow colder as it pierced deeper into his bones. The golden sand started to spiral across the ground and eventually started to rise into the air. It continued to spin in the air until it formed a small tornado. He was now surrounded by 6 small tornadoes. A deadly energy emerged from the tornadoes and attacked Lin Feng in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng was surprised. What a pure and unadulterated killing intent. Nothing was being held back. Boom! A violent sandstorm was suddenly unleashed. The small tornadoes started to merge together and form a terrifying storm that spun around Lin Feng. Lin Feng couldn't see anything, he was surrounded by the terrifying storm. Lin Feng was astonished, he also released some terrifying deadly energy. Without mercy for his opponents, his deadly chi immediately burst into the sky and poured into the atmosphere. Lin Feng was releasing more and more deadly energy, his murderous energy was indestructible. That terrifying deadly chi rolled across the sky. The cold sandstorm seemed like it was started to lose its power, as if it was starting to grow weaker. It seemed like Lin Feng's deadly energy now had enough power to suppress the sandstorm. At that moment, the deadly energy moved like waves, moving back and forth then crashing down. The wind was slowly fading, as if it was never there to begin with. Young Master's deadly energy is extremely strong, it is also very pure and dense. It is much stronger than the deadly energy contained within our spell. If we fought, we would definitely lose, said one of the 6 women while opening her eyes. Her voice sounded clear and melodious. Chun Feng, now is not the time to give face, you stopped using your full power. He would definitely lose if you didn't give him face, said Yu Menghe while laughing and looking at Lin Feng. When she saw that Lin Feng looked embarrassed, she laughed even more and said, Little Feng, don't think that those 6 tornadoes are not strong, it was only the beginning of their spell. If the 6 tornadoes really merge as one, the strength you released a moment ago would only provide you with a few extra moments of life. Lin Feng looked pensive. With the deadly energy that he had just released, he wouldn't have won against a genuine formation spell. Of course, if you spare no effort and use every ounce of your strength, you would have the power to overcome the spell and win against these 6. Said Yu Menghe explaining to Lin Feng in detail. If he used every ounce of his power, he would be able to defeat the 6 cultivators surrounding him, but there were still 30 other members. Yu Menghe's troop wasn't considered a weak force at all. In 18 years, Yu Menghe had spared no effort in order to create such a powerful group. Mother, tell them to use their full strength, said Lin Feng while slightly grinning. His smile was filled with confidence which stupefied Yu Menghe. She immediately said, Chun Feng, the young master wants you to use your full strength, you know what you have to do. I know, replied Chun Feng while smiling at Yu Menghe. Very quickly, their tornadoes rose into the air and the tornadoes began to encircle Lin Feng again. Little Feng is still too young. He has too much confidence, maybe he will need to be injured by the spell before he understands, thought Yu Menghe while smiling. Lin Feng will win, said Meng Qing at that moment in a low voice which stupefied Yu Menghe. She then said to Meng Qing, how come you believe in Little Feng so much? I believe in him more than I believe in myself. If he says that he is going to try something, it means that he has a plan to win, explained Meng Qing, to which Yu Menghe shook her head and said, while smiling, Meng Qing, you have too much confidence in him. Of course, Yu Meng he was actually extremely happy to see Meng Qing's faith in Lin Feng. Yu Meng he was still smiling and when she suddenly heard a large impact. The sandstorm had stopped blowing and the 6 women were blown away. Yu Meng he was astonished. Immediately after, she saw Lin Feng appear in front of her again. He looked calm and serene as if nothing had happened. "It seems like you know my son much better than me," said Yu Meng he to Meng Qing. Lin Feng had won, and he won very quickly. In the blink of an eye, he had broken the spell. Yu Meng he turned to Lin Feng and asked, "You understand the intricacies of spells?" "Yes, I do," replied Lin Feng while nodding. In Yangzhou City, he had spent a long time researching spells and formations. That sandstorm spell formed from 6 tornadoes wasn't that complex, it was very simple for someone with the know-how to break. Chapter 446, Yen Dang Mountain Likey, whoops this was lurking here. Sorry it came out late today my birthday lols Wednesday's chapter Yen Dang was the name of a mountain chain to the northwest of Yangzhou City. Many influential groups resided within this mountain chain. At the top of the highest mountain in the Yen Dan mountain chain, there was a vast and boundless palace. The owner of that palace was respected and revered by everyone within the surrounding 100 kilometers. That palace was a restricted area though, ordinary people couldn't enter it and even many nobles didn't dare try to enter. That was due to the fact that the owner of the palace was an old man with an extremely bad temper. The old man's specialty was swords. When he was angry, he would go out and destroy a small mountain. He had the power to turn mountains into ashes, not to mention human beings. Besides, that old man had 2 disciples, a young girl and a young man. They were both extraordinarily talented, they could even go head to head with the smaller influential groups within the country by themselves, they were very strong. At that moment, in the palace, there was a terrifying deadly energy floating in the atmosphere. It then dashed into the sky making the air shake so violently that the ferocious beasts in the region started to run in the opposite direction. The deadly energy was so strong and powerful that it could cause one's soul to shake. Boom! The deadly energy exploded again as a silhouette appeared in the sky and then landed on the top of the palace. He was releasing even more monstrous deadly energy. At that moment, the old man didn't look like an old man at all, he looked like a beast. Behind the old man, there was a beautiful girl. Her eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. Lin Feng had killed her fellow disciple, she hated him, they had to avenge her fellow disciple's death. She hadn't gone to look for Lin Feng because she knew that she didn't have the power to go against him. Instead, she ran day and night until she returned to Yen Dang Mountain, so she could tell her master of Ling Tian's death. If her master got involved, it would without a doubt be the end of Lin Feng. You stay here, I, Ji Guang, will go collect his head and bring it back here for all to see. I will avenge my beloved disciple," said the old man coldly. The girl looked at him in a calm and solemn way while nodding, and then she replied, "Yes, master." The old man released a pure qi which broke the stones under his feet. He jumped into the air and started to run across the sky, however, shortly after he moved into the sky, a sword beam appeared in the valley and rushed towards him. This stupefied the old man. He didn't hurry to leave and waited for the person to arrive before him. It was a man who looked around 30 years old. He looked smart and handsome, his eyebrows were sharp like swords. His eyes were the eyes of a madman who would destroy everything with his sword. His aura was swift and sharp, like an accomplished sword cultivator. "Ji Guang," said the man in a cold tone which surprised Ji Guang who was still fixedly staring at him. "Who are you?" asked Ji Guang. The man was filled with killing intent, but at the same time, he looked like an extremely powerful opponent. "I've heard that you, Ji Guang, are an expert at using swords. When you hold a sword in your hands, you become a messenger of death, everybody that encounters your sword is sent to their grave. I think that we could learn from each other, let us compare notes." said the man in a cold tone. A terrifying battle energy emerged from him. That person was challenging Ji Guang's sword. The girl who was behind Ji Guang frowned. That man was only about 30 years old and he was challenging her master to a sword duel. How arrogant. A terrifying sword energy emerged from the man's body. That sword energy was monstrously sharp, and the most terrifying thing about it was the lack of emotion. It was as if all his emotions were void, as if his sword was the only thing in the world and everything else was merely straw dogs. Zhuge Wuqing. Ji Guang was astonished. Even though he had never seen Zhuge Wuqing, in Shuiyu, apart from him, nobody else had such a powerful and emotionless sword. Two powerhouses were fighting with swords. They were both extremely famous sword cultivators. One was Ji Guang, the other one was Zhuge Wuqing. Ji Guang also released a terrifying sword energy which covered the skies. It seemed like there were millions of extremely bright lights which twinkled in the sky. It was dazzling. The entire Yendang mountain chain was illuminated by his sword energy. Who is fighting? What a terrifying sword energy! The people from the mountain chain started to notice the scene above them. They all started shaking under the pressure of such powerful sword energy. That sword energy was definitely from Ji Guang's sword. Surprisingly, there was another extremely strong sword cultivator who was fighting against him. Who was strong enough to compare with Ji Guang's sword? The girl behind Ji Guang started shaking. What a terrifying sword! Zhuge Wuqing, since you have come to fight, use your full strength. The sound of a sword unsheathing filled the air and a sword appeared in the old man's hand. It looked like a ray of light. A gigantic sword spirit then emerged from behind Ji Guang. The spirit was unleashing a shocking sword energy. I, Zhuge Wuqing, haven't directly used my sword for 18 years, but today, in front of a venerable old man like you, I will unsheath my sword, said Zhuge Wuqing calmly. A simple-looking sword sheath appeared behind his back. It was shaking intensely and the sound of a sword being unsheathed spread through the air. Zhuge Wuqing had unsheathed a blood-red emotionless sword. Ji Guang, your life is over, said Zhuge Wuqing looking as calm as before, but his voice was ice-cold and emotionless. Those two incredible sword cultivators were going to fight to death. If one of them managed to reach the other with their sword, they would definitely kill the other. There would only be one person walking away today. Ji Guang's heart was palpitating. Nobody said anything, as the two sword energies started rolling through the atmosphere and colliding against each other. An extremely bright sword chi and an emotionless sword chi illuminated the atmosphere in their own respective way. A sudden wind emerged as the sword energies rose into the skies and crashed against the other. Suddenly, the two silhouettes disappeared from sight. The pressure released by the sword energies was intense. Everyone under that pressure felt like they were going to be ripped apart. The sky was tearing and ripping sounds filled the air. In a flash, the two silhouettes reappeared. An extremely bright sword chi and an emotionless sword chi emerged with them. It seemed like everything else had disappeared from sight and only the two swords remained in the air. This was the confrontation of two amazing sword cultivators. The stronger a sword cultivator was, the more dangerous and terrifying their battles were to watch. The two fighters then returned to their original positions. Ji Guang looked at Zhuge Wuqing and said, "Was this only for the advancement your sword?" Zhuge Wuqing shook his head. He had stopped stubbornly following the path of the sword for a long time now. You lost your beloved disciple and wanted to use your sword to avenge him. However, the one you want to harm is somebody that I will use my sword to protect, said Zhuge Wuqing calmly. Ji Guang looked like he understood the deeper motives behind Zhuge Wuqing's actions. I understand, whispered Ji Guang. Without any further movements, the sound of a sword cutting through flesh filled the air. A fountain of blood burst into the air and Ji Guang's body separated into two parts. Ah! The girl screamed. She was terrified and started shaking from head to toe. There was no longer any strength remaining in her body and her face had turned deathly pale. Gotcha! Boom! The palace at the top of the mountain started to tremble and then suddenly a huge crevice appeared in the center, as if it had been cut in two. Sunlight could now pass through the large crevice. It was an astonishing sight. Zhuge Wuqing turned around, his body transformed into a sword and he pierced through the atmosphere as he streaked across the sky. As he disappeared from sight, a few drops of blood could be seen falling from his sword. After Zhuge Wuqing left, the girl was left alone in the middle of the empty palace. She continued to cry throughout the night. All of this had been too shocking for her. Her master had lost his life in mere moments from a single sword strike. The memory of Lin Feng killing Ling Tian with a single sword strike seemed to overlap with the current images in her mind. Lin Feng killed Ling Tian just like Zhuge Wuqing killed her master, Ji Guang. At that moment, this little girl felt an endless ocean of regret. Because she had made a small remark that convinced Ling Tian to go to Yangzhou City, he was now dead. Because of her, her master Ji Guang wanted to kill Lin Feng and was killed instead. She felt endless guilt. Everything she did was a joke. It was laughably pathetic. Her incredibly powerful fellow disciple had been killed. Her master that incited fear in so many people, had been killed. Lin Feng had no idea about the events that were occurring at this moment. How could he know that Zhuge Wuqing traveled to Yandang in order to kill Ji Guang if he moved against Lin Feng? Lin Feng didn't even know who Master Ji Guang was, and he also didn't know that if Zhuge Wuqing hadn't intervened, he might have found himself in a very dangerous situation in the future. In the desert, Lin Feng was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. However, his terrifyingly powerful soul was floating through the air. The sand was rolling across the ground as the wind blew. Lin Feng started to focus and used his pure qi to control the movement of the yellow sand. There was currently a scroll laying in front of the cross-legged Lin Feng, one that he unfolded. On the scroll, one could see various text and pictures. It was a formation. At the top of the scroll were the word, 9 Palace Dragon Formation. Lin Feng had found this formation inside the ring of the old man that he killed during the national competition and was using this time to learn it. Chapter 447, Jianya Hage. Yu Menghe, Lin Hai and Meng Qing were looking at the storm of golden sand that started to form. The formation was slowly coming into being, which shocked everyone. They were all looking at each other with disbelief. Yu Menghe was stunned, but pleasantly surprised. She asked, "Has little Feng learnt any witchcraft or formations before?" "I don't know. But considering his vast knowledge, he has probably learnt about witchcraft and formations before. Besides, his understanding of it doesn't seem to be superficial," replied Lin Hai. Yu Menghe nodded in agreement. The 9 Palace Dragon Formation was very famous within the imperial city. If one managed to unleash the formation, it could trap other people inside. If someone who wasn't strong enough was locked inside, he wouldn't be able to break out and would remain a prisoner forever. Lin Feng, only after studying it for a brief time, was able to make the rudimentary form of the formation appear. It was an extremely rare occurrence to see someone so talented using the formation. "Master, look," said one of the girls in white. She was pointing into the distance. Those girls had been raised by Yu Menghe, they all respected her as their master. Yu Menghe raised her head and saw a storm of golden sand, it was slowly transforming into 9 palaces. Floating in the air were 9 palaces formed completely from the sand. Not bad. Yu Menghe smiled. The 9 palaces had already taken shape. After a short time, Lin Feng would be able to cast the 9 Palace Dragon Formation. How could she not be happy for her son? However, at that moment, Lin Feng abruptly opened his eyes were filled with a deep and mysterious expression. "Go!" Lin Feng pointed out with his finger and the golden sand started to whistle through the air. At the same time, a dragon's roar filled the sky. The golden sand filled the air and eventually surrounded Yu Menghe and the others. Suddenly, they were all standing in a completely different location. They were all inside a golden room. They were together a moment ago, but at that moment, they were each alone inside a golden room. They were all trapped inside an identical golden room. Illusion. Yu Menghe was shaking and her face was frozen. A moment before, she thought that Lin Feng still needed some time before he was able to use the formation, but at that moment, she realized that she was wrong. Lin Feng had managed to cast the 9 Palace Dragon formation. "Mother, how is it?" asked Lin Feng as he appeared in front of her. "Not bad," said Yu Menghe while smiling. She was impressed by her son's talent. He was extremely talented on the path of cultivation, but he also had the power to cast spells and formations. At that moment, Yu Menghe wasn't aware that Lin Feng could also concoct pills and fabricate weapons. She was unaware of how talented he was in a great deal of areas. His soul was extremely powerful compared to others, so no matter what he did, his talent would be extraordinary. Even his understanding of the qi was much more advanced than others with the same amount of power. His soul was extremely powerful, which allowed him to sense the many different domains, including witchcraft, alchemy and many others. No matter what Lin Feng attempted, he would be beyond the ordinary. Lin Feng's soul was very different from an ordinary person. Because he cultivated the surplus souls technique, his soul was several times stronger than others. The fact that Lin Feng had immediately appeared beside her in the illusion didn't surprise Yu Menghe. Lin Feng was the one controlling the formation. Using the power of his soul, he would be able to freely travel throughout his illusion. If he wanted to change anything inside the illusion, it would only take a thought. He had absolute control. So if he wanted to enter the illusion, it only took a single thought. "This is my limit, I cannot hold it for much longer. It looks like I will still need some time to master it. I need to reach the point of making it appear in a flash and have it remain indefinitely, only then have I mastered this formation spell." When Yu Menghe heard Lin Feng, she nodded while looking gratified. In such a short time, Lin Feng was already able to achieve so much. Lin Feng didn't look proud or arrogant at all, he was only focused on mastering the formation. Even though Lin Feng could look or sound arrogant when dealing with his enemies, he wasn't really an arrogant person. On the path of cultivation, there was no room for arrogance. He would only act arrogantly in front of other people, as a means to prevent them from seeing him as weak. "Mother, I need your help with this. I want to see how easy it is to break my illusion. Can you use your power to break it?" asked Lin Feng. He wanted to see how much power his illusion could withstand. "All right." Yu Menghe nodded as she released a shockingly powerful qi. Lin Feng quickly moved away from her. Yu Menghe's silhouette flickered and she flew into the air with her fist raised above her head. Her fist immediately collided with the roof of the golden room. Gotcha! The golden rooms seemed to shake and sounded like they were about to crack apart. Yu Menghe was stupefied, but immediately after, she smiled. After her punch, cracking sounds unceasingly spread through the air as the golden rooms started to shatter into oblivion. After, a rumbling sound spread through the air and the illusion disappeared completely from sight. Lin Feng and the others were back to the golden desert where they were previously. The different parts of the 9 Palace Dragon formation were dependent on each other. If a single spell was broken, the entire formation would collapse. Lin Feng sighed with disappointment. When facing an extremely strong cultivator, he could attempt a million different methods, but a single punch was enough to defeat him and break his illusion. When the others appeared in the desert again, they looked towards Lin Feng. Everyone was still shocked. Lin Feng was extremely talented. Surprisingly, he was able to learn the spells and create the formation in such a short time. That was talent. "Mother, how powerful was it?" asked Lin Feng to his mother. Yu Menghe had a magnificent smile on her face. She nodded and said, "Little Feng, you are at the second Xian Qi layer, but by using a single spell, you will be able to imprison cultivators of the 4th Xian Qi layer without problem. When Lin Feng heard Yu Menghe, he smiled. When a cultivator could use witchcraft, they had the complete advantage when fighting against those with a similar level of power. Otherwise, what would be the point in studying spells and formations? If spells provided no benefit, then it would have been safer to focus solely on cultivation. Cultivators who were extremely talented when using spells could even imprison and kill cultivators who had cultivation levels which were much higher than theirs. With an extremely high cultivation, there was nothing that was impossible. However, spells were able to close the gaps between cultivation levels, making the impossible a reality. Therefore, many people dedicated their lives to witchcraft and the study of spells and formations. Lin Feng wouldn't be one of those people. For him, spells and alchemy were tools he could use to benefit his cultivation. With that spell, he wouldn't be afraid of fighting against multiple cultivators at the 4th Xian Qi layer. Little Feng, you have spent a great deal of time on your cultivation, let's take this chance to go back and rest. Said Yu Menghe when she saw that Lin Feng was working so hard. She also felt worried. After all, how could any mother bear to watch her son living such a harsh life? But Lin Feng shook his head and said, Mother, I want to go to Tianyahage and visit the city. Go to Tianyahage. Yu Menghe was stupefied and remained silent. She knew nothing about the mysterious city. She really hoped that Lin Feng wouldn't have any ideas about going there. But Lin Feng wanted to go, so she couldn't stop him. Chun Feng and Xia Yu will go with you, said Yu Menghe while nodding. No need, Meng Qing and I will go alone, that's more than enough, replied Lin Feng while shaking his head. But, okay, replied Yu Menghe when she saw how firm Lin Feng was being. She decided to accept his decision. Little Feng, Tianyahage, even though it's a city, it's huge, even gigantic. It is much, much, much bigger than our imperial city in Shuiyu. Tianyahage has a central district, which is filled with terrifyingly strong cultivators. If you go there, be extremely careful. It would be better for you to stay away from the central district, warned Lin Hai. He didn't feel at ease. They were in a foreign land, dangers could be everywhere. Don't worry, father, I will be careful, replied Lin Feng while smiling. There were some terrifyingly strong cultivators in the central district of Tianyahage. Could there be cultivators of the Tian Qi layer or higher? Concerning Lin Feng, he would leave Shuiyu sooner or later, it was only a matter of time. He would go and explore the continent of the 9 clouds to meet more powerful cultivators. At that moment, he was in front of Tianyahage. It was a great opportunity to meet incredibly strong cultivators and see what attracted them here. Meng Qing. Lin Feng looked to Meng Qing. Of course, she would agree to go with him. She walked towards him without a word and they both shot into the distance, leaving only a cloud of golden sand behind. Lin Hai looked at Lin Feng's back and smiled. Menghe, Lin Feng has become a true man. Chapter 448, The Wolves of the Desert Edit, Likey I just got home. Thursday chapter Lin Feng and Meng Qing were running across the desert and were surrounded by a cloud of sand. The desert was extremely vast. Lin Feng and Meng Qing had already been running for a few hours but they still hadn't made it through the desert. What annoyed Lin Feng the most was that because of the constant sandstorms, they could only run aimlessly across the sand and they didn't know if they were heading the right way. Meng Qing, sorry for not asking for more details before I decided to leave, said Lin Feng when he saw that Meng Qing was covered in sand and tired from having to run. He felt guilty. He had thought that the desert would be much smaller and they could immediately cross it, but after a few hours, apart from a few silhouettes in the distance, they hadn't encountered anything at all. Don't blame yourself, said Meng Qing while shaking her head. She gazed into the distance and pointed while saying, look, there are some people over there. Let's go over and ask them. Lin Feng looked in the direction that Meng Qing was pointing and saw a few silhouettes moving through the desert. He then said, "Let's go and see." The two of them started running and very quickly, they arrived in front of those people. The group consisted of 4 boys and a girl. They seemed to be wearing peculiar clothes, their hair was also messy and unkempt. Their tan skin paired with their messy hair made them seem wild. However, the girl was very different. She seemed to be quite pretty. When the 5 people saw Lin Feng arrive, they all glanced at him. Lin Feng only looked back at them. They were in foreign territory, so it was better to see how the low 0 calories would behave. "Hello, may I help you?" asked the girl, taking the initiative to speak first, which relieved Lin Feng. Even though she had said only a few words, Lin Feng could see that those people weren't much different from them. "We have gotten lost in the desert. Could you help us find our way?" asked Lin Feng politely. When those people heard Lin Feng, they were stupefied. They got lost in the desert? They were probably young nobles who never left home, otherwise how would they get lost? Besides, the two of them looked very clean and elegant compared to the group. Lin Feng was handsome and looked very wise for his age. Meng Qing, even though she was wearing a fine veil which covered her face, they could still see that her features were very beautiful. "There is only one direction to go, continue moving west and you will eventually leave the desert, but we're heading that way so we can go together," said the girl while smiling. Her eyes were sparkling, she looked extremely enthusiastic. "All right," said Lin Feng. How could he refuse? Mixing with the local people would be a great way to learn about their culture and traditions. "My name is Noa Na," said the girl while smiling at Lin Feng. She was happy to hear Lin Feng's quick response. "Lin Feng," replied Lin Feng. "Lin Feng," whispered Noa Na. She then asked, "Lin Feng, if you are lost in the desert, how did you get out here?" "I had nothing to do at home so I wanted to explore," replied Lin Feng in a soft voice while smiling. "You are from the city?" asked Noa Na, which surprised Lin Feng. "From the city? Could it be that these people were not from Tianyahage?" "You could say that, yes," replied Lin Feng while nodding. His response was extremely quick. Noa Na didn't doubt his words. Lin Feng and Meng Qing looked so clean and elegant. If they had lost their way in the desert, it probably meant that they were from the city. "You're so brave, surprisingly you have come all the way into the territory of the wolves of the desert," sighed Noa Na, which stupefied Lin Feng. "The wolves of the desert? Don't tell me that you don't know about the wolves of the desert." Noa Na was speechless. What kind of young master was Lin Feng? Surprisingly, he had never heard that the outer areas of the city were the territory of the wolves of the desert. Lin Feng smiled wryly. It was his first time in this land, the fact that he didn't know about them wasn't strange at all. "Lin Feng, in the city, there might be people who can protect you, but outside of the city, in the territory of the wolves of the desert, you have to be very careful. They are extremely wild, aggressive, brutal and violent. If you see them, you have to avoid them. They are the strongest group outside of the city. There is no way for us to fight against them," explained Noa Na to Lin Feng. Lin Feng understood the whole story a bit better. The wolves of the desert were just a powerful group of bandits. From. The ground was starting to shake beneath their feet as a huge cloud of sand could be seen. In the distance, a group riding horses appeared. Noa Na and the others were frozen in fear. They raised their heads and looked towards the group in the distance. When they saw the huge cloud of sand, their facial expressions gradually became grave. "Shit! Speak of the devil. Lin Feng, those people are from the wolves of the desert, we have to go, we can't afford to cross their path. They might decide to attack us." While talking, Noa Na started running. Immediately, the 4 others from her group followed closely behind her. Lin Feng was dumbstruck. He glanced at the horses in the distance and then followed behind Noana. They had to hurry if they wanted to avoid the group of bandits. But what surprised Noana was that the sound of the galloping horses was growing louder and louder as if they were coming closer. Noana glanced back and her face turned deathly pale. They were actually moving in their direction. Oh no! Noana was surprised. She started to run even faster, but how could she run faster than horses? Very quickly, the horses arrived and then surrounded them. They then started to run circles around them, forming a ring of sand. In the middle of the cloud of sand, the bandits looked like they found the situation amusing, especially the one leading them, who was a young man. He looked like he was about to burst into laughter. He was fixedly staring at Meng Qing and Noana, while looking particularly perverted. Noana and her friends pulled a long face. What they feared the most was actually happening. Surprisingly, they had come across the wolves of the desert. Venerable and respected young man, hello, we are disciples of the Blackwood tribe. I am the daughter of the head of the Blackwood tribe. We have accidentally crossed your path, I hope that you will not be offended and let us go. Said Noana in a polite tone. At the same time, she declared her social status in an attempt to make the wolves of the desert less aggressive. The horses finally stopped galloping. That evil-looking young man smiled coldly and said, "The daughter of the head of the Blackwood tribe? Wow, amazing, terrific. You almost scared me. Ha ha ha." All those wolves of the desert burst into laughter. It seemed like Noana was trying to use her social status as a deterrent. But those people didn't care at all. It seemed like Noana and the others were terribly unlucky this time. How should I deal with that girl of the Blackwood tribe? Said the young man while laughing like a madman. He was asking the group of bandits. Let's take her back. Of course, we should give her to the second young master, she can be your 8th wife. Joked the group while laughing in a hysterical way which made Noana's face turn deathly pale. Those people had just called him second young master. Second young master, I didn't know that such a venerable and respectable person as you would appear in this place. Please forgive my offense, the Blackwood tribe will be extremely grateful for your kindness. Said Noana, whose face was still deathly pale. She sounded very sincere though. Lin Feng frowned and looked at the group coldly. Those wolves of the desert were exactly the way he would imagine a group of outlaws to be. They were just horse-mounted bandits, nothing more. But they were powerful, which was why Noana and the others were scared. Perhaps it's time for 8 wives. Said the second young master while laughing again. Immediately after, he started galloping away at full speed. I hope that Noana has heard and understood. During midday, I will come to the Blackwood tribe and will propose a marriage alliance between us. All of you must be there, not a single person is allowed to be absent. If one of you is missing, we will exterminate the Blackwood tribe. Said the second master, whose silhouette was disappearing into the horizon. The other members of the wolves of the desert then followed him, leaving a huge cloud of yellow sand behind them. Noana's face was turned deathly pale. A marriage alliance? She would be forced into becoming the wife of the second master of the wolves of the desert. Besides, she would become the 8th wife, or maybe even the 9th or the 10th. Noana, let's hurry and go back. We will talk to our head. Said one of the boys to Noana. He looked anxious. Leave. Noana looked like she was about to cry. She then said in a feeble voice, "It seems that I'm the one to blame. Outside of the city, the wolves of the desert are everywhere." Chapter 449, The Tribe Edit, Likey, next one will be when I wake back up or when someone else takes over. Friday chapter. Noana turned around and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng, is that beautiful girl your wife? Wife? Lin Feng was stupefied, but he immediately smiled warmly and replied, "Yes, she is." When Meng Qing, who was sitting next to him, heard him, she felt very embarrassed, but at the same time, a sweet and warm feeling invaded her heart. You should both run away, quickly. Go back to the city, said Noa Na. Lin Feng looked surprised and replied, but you heard that guy, he said that tomorrow at midday, we all have to be there, not a single one of us should be missing, otherwise he will destroy your tribe. I heard him, but I cannot get you involved. The second young master of the wolves of the desert is probably interested in your wife as well, you should run away as soon as possible, said Noa Na. She was advising Lin Feng to leave. What about you? What if a catastrophe occurs? Lin Feng was surprised. He wouldn't have thought that Noa Na would advise them to leave when she was in such a critical situation. I will sacrifice myself and marry the second young master of the wolves of the desert, then nothing bad will happen to the Blackwood tribe, said Noa Na. No, you can't do that, how can you marry him? Said one of the young men who was shaking his head frenetically. When Noa Na saw his facial expression, she smiled wryly and said, Hey Shan, I'm sorry. I will not be able to marry you in the future when you are the strongest warrior in the tribe. Noa Na, I will never let you marry one of the wolves of the desert, replied He Shan with a barbaric expression on his face. He kept shaking his head over and over again. Noa Na was smiling wryly. What bad luck it was for them to encounter the second young master of the wolves of the desert. Noa Na, said Lin Feng at that moment, which made Noa Na turn her head towards him. How strong are the wolves of the desert? Asked Lin Feng. Noa Na looked at Lin Feng and immediately started speaking slowly, very strong. Actually, the wolves of the desert are a tribe, they are the strongest tribe outside of the city. They are much stronger than most of the other tribes, which is why they roam freely. Apart from them, there are many other tribes that roam the desert, and many of those tribes could destroy my tribe easily. What about their battle strength? Asked Lin Feng again. The wolves of the desert is a tribe divided into many smaller tribes. In order to become the head of one of those branches, a cultivator must have at least broken through to the Xian Qi layer. They are also the persists of the tribe and are extremely strong. The wolves of the desert has many strong cultivators. The weakest of them are of the Ling Qi layer. Besides, the head of the entire tribe, the king of the wolves, is extremely strong, but I don't know how powerful he is. What I can guarantee is that he has at least broken through the first Xian Qi layer into the second, or maybe more. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to assume his position as king of the wolves. After Noa Na explained those things to Lin Feng, he remained silent for a while, his eyes were twinkling. Second Xian Qi layer. Let's go to the Blackwood tribe together, said Lin Feng at that moment, which stupefied Noa Na. She didn't understand why Lin Feng wanted to come. Lin Feng, are you sure? Asked Noa Na solemnly. I am sure, said Lin Feng while nodding. He smiled and added, you still have to show me the way out of the desert. When Noa Na heard Lin Feng, she smiled. Since Lin Feng insisted, she wouldn't try to convince him any longer. She only nodded and said, all right, let's all go back to the Blackwood tribe then. It was exactly how Noa Na said. They continued heading directly to the west. After a while, they were out of the desert, but the landscape didn't look anything like Lin Feng had imagined. The land was still a vast and boundless desert, but there were exotic trees growing from the sand to form a jungle. As far as Lin Feng could see, there was sand and exotic trees. Of course, many tribes were probably living in the jungle or roaming the open desert, just like the wolves of the desert. The Blackwood tribe was situated on a hill. There was 500-600 households built around the hill. It looked more like a fortified hill village. As expected, it's just a small tribe, thought Lin Feng when he saw the small fences and simple defenses that were erected. Their defenses didn't look good at all, they were very basic defenses. They were able to stop normal people and wild beasts, but were far from being able to stop most cultivators. When Noa Na came back, all the people started to greet her. Nobody asked her what she had obtained during her trip though. everybody was just staring towards Lin Feng and Meng Qing. They were very curious as to who these people were. "Noa Na, who are those two strangers?" asked one of the tribe. "They are my new friends, we met in the desert," explained Noa Na. She didn't mention what had happened in the desert with the wolves of the desert. She didn't want anyone to panic. "Noa Na," said a loud and vigorous voice which interrupted the conversation. The crowd slowly opened a path and shouted, the head has come," one after the other. "Father." The crowd opened the way and a tall and strong man appeared in front of Noa Na. "Noa Na, didn't you bring any items back?" asked the head of the Blackwood tribe. She just shook her head, she didn't know what to say. "Noa Na, has something happened? Something that prevented you from returning with a good harvest?" asked He Mu at that moment. Noa Na shook her head again and said, "Nothing, father." "What are you talking about?" suddenly said He Shan while moving forwards. He looked at He Mu and said, "Foster father, we encountered the wolves of the desert." "The wolves of the desert." When the crowd heard his words, many people started to shake. They all looked terrified. "He Shan, shut your mouth!" shouted Noa Na, but her father glared at her until she lowered her head in silence. He then said to He Shan, "Son, tell me what happened." "Foster father, we ran into these two when crossing the desert, then the wolves of the desert appeared. One of the men with them was the second young master. He clearly said that at midday tomorrow, he will come and propose a marriage alliance. They also said that all of us had to be here, if any of us were missing, they would destroy the tribe." He Shan hadn't even finished talking that the crowd around them burst into an uproar. All sorts of shocked comments were spreading throughout the crowd. He Mu looked stupefied as well. The second young master of the wolves of the desert. It was said that this perverted young man loved women more than anything else in life. If he saw a beautiful woman, she would be forced into becoming his wife. He already had 7 wives but it was still not enough for him, he was never satisfied. "Noa Na, what do you intend to do?" Noa Na groaned coldly. She remained silent for a few seconds and replied, "I want Lin Feng and his wife to leave. Then I will sacrifice myself and marry the second young master from the wolves of the desert, that way, I will be the only one to suffer, nobody else needs to get involved and nothing will happen to the tribe." "You're too naive," said He Mu interrupting his daughter. "It's impossible to bargain with such people. Besides, how do you know that you're the one he wants?" While talking, He Mu glanced at Meng Qing. He could see how incredibly beautiful her features were. The second young master was probably extremely interested in her. "Noa Na, you still haven't introduced your 2 friends to me?" asked He Mu in a loud voice while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng glanced at him. He Mu really deserved to be the head of the Blackwood tribe, the way he handled things was more well practiced than Noa Na. "I met Lin Feng in the desert and we became friends. That beautiful woman is his wife," said Noa Na introducing her friends. "Oh. They look like a perfect match," replied He Mu while nodding. He then immediately added, "It's getting late, go find a place for our guests. He Shan, bring Lin Feng and his wife to one of the guest houses, also don't bother them and let them rest." When He Shan heard He Mu's order, he nodded and said, "All right, I will let them rest." Lin Feng glanced at Noa Na and saw that her mouth was slightly open. She was astonished but she didn't say anything, it would have been useless anyway so she kept her mouth shut. "Lin Feng, come with me," said He Shan politely. Immediately after, he brought Meng Qing and Lin Feng to a large house and prepared everything for them to stay the night. Lin Feng didn't say anything and happily accepted. After He Shan left, Lin Feng frowned. He walked to the window and opened it. He could clearly sense that some people were observing them. He Shan didn't trust Lin Feng, he was afraid that Lin Feng would leave and cause the destruction of the Blackwood tribe. Therefore, he had people watching them, ready to intercept them if they left. But if Lin Feng wanted to leave, would any of this be useful? Chapter 450, The Most Important Person. Edit, Likey Friday Chapter He Mu was the head of the Blackwood tribe. He couldn't afford to be as naive as Noah Na and tell them to leave. Besides, He Mu understood the situation much better than Noah Na. The second young master of the wolves of the desert probably wasn't interested in Noah Na, but rather Lin Feng's wife. If that was really the case, then since Lin Feng left, the Blackwood tribe would definitely be destroyed. That was the last thing He Mu wanted to happen. He couldn't afford to gamble with thousands of lives and let them leave. Even though Lin Feng could understand He Mu's point of view, he still felt angry. Of course, he was Lin Feng and not He Mu. He Mu and Lin Feng were neither friends or enemies, so why would he care about He Mu's point of view? Lin Feng didn't want to allow others to spy on him. Nobody would accept such a thing. If he really wanted them to stay, he could have told them clearly. He didn't need to use such despicable means. Besides, Lin Feng had come here by his own free will. "I am going out," said Lin Feng to Meng Qing while smiling. Meng Qing slightly nodded. She had of course sensed the people surrounding them. She also didn't feel comfortable with it. Who would allow unknown people to watch them while sleeping or cultivating? Lin Feng left the room and started to walk away. He looked like he was leaving the territory of He Mu's tribe. As expected, Lin Feng hadn't even made it very far when two silhouettes appeared in front to block him, while they remained silent. "What do you want?" asked Lin Feng, sounding indifferent, yet cold. "Dear guest, please go back," said one of them. He was wearing black clothes and his voice contained a coldness. He was expressionless. "I want to go out for a walk," replied Lin Feng while shaking his head. "Dear guest, it would be best for you to go back. There are some ferocious beasts out there. It's not safe," said his interlocutor while still blocking his path. "I don't need you to worry about my safety," said Lin Feng while smiling and continued walking. The two people were stupefied and immediately moved in front of him again while shouting, "Since it's that way, don't blame us." "Why would I blame you?" said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent. He then released a terrifying energy which froze the two people in place. They were shocked. "Get lost!" shouted Lin Feng. His shout caused fear to overcome the hearts of the two people blocking his path. At the same time, a fist landed on each of their chests and their bodies were sent hurtling backwards. "They want to rely on you to keep me here, but you only amount to this," said Lin Feng coldly. The two people were crawling across the ground and viciously staring at Lin Feng. They immediately picked themselves up and ran away. "Humph." Lin Feng groaned coldly, turned around and went back to his room. He looked at Meng Qing and said, "Meng Qing, should we stay here tonight or go out?" "Let's leave. It will be calmer outside," said Meng Qing while smiling. Lin Feng grabbed Meng Qing's hand and started to move. These days, Meng Qing stopped rejecting his advances. She held on to Lin Feng's hand and they left the tribe together. They rose into the air and streaked across the sky. In the blink of an eye, they were gone. After Lin Feng and Meng Qing left, a group of people with torches and lanterns rushed towards the guest house. When they saw that it was empty, they were astonished. "Bastard! Where did they leave from?" He Mu was furious. "Father, Lin Feng is not a member of our tribe. If he left, just let it be. We shouldn't interfere with others," said Noah Na, who was by his side. "Shut the hell up," said He Mu. "What do you know? They left, which means our Blackwood tribe will meet its end. If you want to marry the second young master of the wolves of the desert, that's your problem, but now everybody is involved, your brothers and sisters will all die." Noah Na's face turned deathly pale, her lips twitched and she said, "Father, it was your fault for sending people to spy on Lin Feng, otherwise he wouldn't have left. If he had wanted to avoid the situation, he wouldn't have come to our tribe in the first place. Smack! He Mu was furious and immediately slapped his daughter's face. He looked ice cold. You slut! Look at what, you're staying in the guest house now. I'll lock the door, and tomorrow when the second master arrives, I will give him the key. You'll be his and I'll even congratulate him at the wedding. He Mu's voice was ice cold. He then ordered a few guards to stay and prevent her from leaving. Noana's face was deathly pale and the tears started to flow down her cheeks. In tribes like these, men held absolute superiority over women. The Blackwood tribes was no different. For the sake of the tribe, her father would rid himself of all emotion and abandon her. He would sacrifice her for the sake of the whole tribe. Lin Feng had no idea of what was happening after he left. They had already arrived at the top of a small mountain. It was a very dark and cold night in the desert. Meng Qing slightly moved and put her head on Lin Feng's shoulders. She then said, Lin Feng, don't you have the feeling that there is something strange about this place? As if there is something different. Huh? Lin Feng was stupefied. He then looked at Meng Qing and said, you also feel it. Meng Qing smiled and said, Lin Feng, don't forget that I practice a lower moon skill, the sun is its polar opposite. I can sense both water and fire distinctly. Lin Feng nodded. Water and fire were opposite elements, so Meng Qing being able to sense the overwhelming fire chi wasn't surprising at all. I can also sense it. It's like there is a fire burning under our feet that could explode at any moment. Lin Feng had practiced the Cosmos Burning Sun skill. He was still unable to advance it to an authentic sun skill, but it was still at the level of a lower sun skill. It was enough to sense that under their feet, a terrifying fire chi was burning. It was a very scary feeling. I wonder if my mother and father sensed it too when they arrived. Whispered Lin Feng while looking into the distance. Don't think about it too much. Have some rest. Tomorrow, we are going back to the Blackwood tribe. Said Meng Qing while leaning against Lin Feng's body and smiling. Meng Qing, how do you know that we're going back? Because I understand your heart. If we leave it like that, it could be a catastrophic disaster for Noana. She can stay with us if you like. Replied Meng Qing in a soft way. Lin Feng was astonished. You don't mind me having other women by my side? I don't mind, really. Lin Feng, if you meet a girl that you like, she can stay with us, I really don't mind. As long as there is room for me in your heart, I don't mind. Lin Feng was astonished. While talking, Meng Qing looked sad. Did she really think it was okay? You're lying. Said Lin Feng while gazing into the distance. Meng Qing shivered at those words. Well, even if I don't like it, I would have to accept it. The most important thing to me is that I always have a place in your heart. Replied Meng Qing in a soft way. Her voice was sweet and gentle. She loved Lin Feng wholeheartedly, she couldn't change that. She was extremely scared to lose him. It didn't matter that their love was a wonderful and beautiful story, or that she was extremely beautiful, she couldn't help but be scared of losing him. Lin Feng hugged Meng Qing tightly and ran his fingers through her hair. His face was filled with warmth and sweetness. Meng Qing was his first love. She was always by his side, she had always protected him and had never asked for anything in exchange. No matter if she was acting coldly or laughing wholeheartedly, he loved her. For Meng Qing's smile, he was ready to do anything, he would destroy the world for her. How could he ever stop loving her? If there ever was another woman, Meng Qing, nobody would be able to replace you, nobody. You will always be the most important person in my life. Lin Feng was still gazing into the distance, but he had a magnificent smile on his face. However, he couldn't agree to having only one woman by his side, because in the imperial city, there was another woman who wanted nothing more than to be by his side. She was waiting for him. She spent her days drawing portraits of his face, she had dedicated her entire life to him. Sometimes, Lin Feng asked himself why he was going so far for a woman, why he would do anything for a smile. For love, one could accomplish great thing, for love, nothing was impossible. When Meng Qing heard Lin Feng, tears started to roll down her cheeks. He was saying that she was the most important person in his heart and that she would always be. That was enough, for her, that was enough. Chapter 451, Kill Me. Like he was here sat chapter at midday, the scorching sun was soaring high in the sky and the golden sand of the desert seemed like it had turned into lava beneath people's feet. At that moment, the scorching sun was shining down on the Blackwood tribe. Even though it seemed calm and peaceful, the atmosphere was rather depressing. At the entrance of the Blackwood tribe, a great majority of the tribe members were standing in wait. The head of the tribe was standing at the very front, his daughter Noa Na was also by his side. However, Noa Na's hair was an absolute mess and she was bound by rope. Her face was one of sadness. However, she wasn't scared at all, she only felt desperate and hopeless. She had been tied up by her own father and he was going to sacrifice her to a monster, the second young master. How could Noa Na not feel desperate and hopeless? Everybody was calmly standing there and waiting. Finally, the sounds of hooves filled the air and drew the attention of the Blackwood tribe. They all looked extremely nervous. Very quickly, a cloud of golden sand rose in front of them and a group of armored horses arrived at the entrance of the village. I am the second young master of the wolves of the desert, I've come today to propose a marriage alliance. A loud and clear voice filled the air. Immediately after, many people were applauding and cheering him. With one sentence, he had stated his purpose as marriage. It didn't differ much from a kidnapping though. The second young master only allowed the Blackwood tribe to keep face, nothing more. The different horses opened a path for the young man as he appeared before the eyes of the Blackwood tribe. That young man looked extremely arrogant. When he saw that Noa Na had been tied up, he was stupefied and said in an ice-cold tone, "Who is the head of the Blackwood tribe?" He Mu took a step forward and looked at the young man while bowing. He then said in an overly polite tone, "Venerable and respectable second young master, I am the humble head of the Blackwood tribe. I heard that you were interested in my daughter Noa Na. I, He Mu, am willing to give her to you. She is now yours to do with as you please." But the second young master frowned and said coldly, "Who tied her up?" "I am here to propose a marriage alliance, this is not a kidnapping. Besides, I want your daughter and the other girl who was with her yesterday. I want you to hand them both over to me, they will be my new wives." As expected. He Mu wasn't surprised, that second young master had come for Lin Feng's wife. Noa Na was just a bonus, nothing more. "Venerable and respectable second young master, please accept my most sincere apologies, I tied Noa Na up because she voluntarily released the other girl," said He Mu, sounding angry at his daughter, but in reality he was terrified of the second young master. The wolves of the desert were the cruelest people in the region. If the second young master didn't forgive them, it would be the end of the Blackwood tribe. When the second young master heard He Mu, he was stupefied. Then, an ice-cold light started flashing in his eyes. "Do you know why I came here? Do you know what my purpose was?" asked the second young master in a very aggressive tone which caused He Mu to shake. "Yesterday, I didn't immediately attack and kidnap them because I attached too much importance to her feelings. I felt a great deal of esteem and respect for her, that is why I said, and I couldn't have been clearer, that I wanted everybody to be here today. Otherwise, why do you think that I came here in person for your daughter?" "That's ridiculous." The second young master's voice was becoming colder and louder as he spoke. He then added, "Now, you allowed her to leave." He Mu was shaking, he was terrified. "Venerable second young master, my daughter received a bad education, she let her go. You can take Noa Na and deal with her as you wish, you can humiliate her as you see fit." When Noa Na heard her father's words, her face turned red. Her father was telling a monster to take her and humiliate her. Could he still be considered her father? "I will," said the second young master in an ice-cold tone before adding, "but first, I will destroy the Blackwood tribe. Young master! Shouted He Mu. He raised his head and said, Second young master, I am offering you my daughter. And after that, the Blackwood tribe will listen to anything you say, we will work for you. Huh? The second young master was stupefied. When he heard that the Blackwood tribe would be willing to work for him, he thought that it might be a better result than annihilating them. What a shameless excuse of a father. At that moment, an ice-cold voice filled the air, everybody was stupefied. Who's that? He Mu turned around and immediately saw two people in the distance slowly walking towards them. It was precisely Lin Feng and Meng Qin. When He Mu saw them, he was stupefied, the second young master also narrowed his eyes. Immediately after, he smiled, he hadn't thought that Lin Feng and Meng Qin would return. Why did you come back? Shouted Noa Na. Lin Feng had already left, why did he return? He was delivering himself and his wife to the enemy. I never intended to leave, said Lin Feng while smiling. Lin Feng and Meng Qin quickly arrived in front of everybody else. Then they both glared at the second young master. Interesting, said the second young master while smiling. He immediately added, He Mu, you said that you were going to work for us, now go and kill that brat and hand me the girl. Yes, master, replied He Mu and then added, He Shan, go and kill him. Yes, foster father. He Shan took a step forwards and looked at Lin Feng with an ice-cold glare while releasing a deadly energy. Initially, he was supposed to marry Noa Na once he became the strongest warrior in the tribe. He felt that stopping to talk with Lin Feng was the cause of everything that was happening. If they had never met Lin Feng in the desert, none of this would have happened, because the wolves of the desert wouldn't be interested in them if not for Meng Qin. Lin Feng looked at He Shan's deadly energy and laughed. He then said, I am warning you, don't attack. I never show mercy to those who want to kill me. Die, bastard! Shouted He Shan ferociously while throwing himself towards Lin Feng. He released a brutal energy which created a hurricane as he attacked. Wow! How strong! Thought the members of the Blackwood tribe while looking at He Shan. They were all cheering for him, he really deserved to be called a warrior of the Blackwood tribe. He Shan was really strong. Very quickly, He Shan arrived in front of Lin Feng. His fist was moving closer and closer to Lin Feng's chest, but Lin Feng remained absolutely motionless, he wasn't reacting at all. Kill him! Shouted someone from the tribe. Lin Feng had to die for them to survive. Noa Na opened her mouth, her face was deathly pale. Lin Feng had returned, but he was going to die. He Shan was one of the strongest warriors of the Blackwood tribe, how could Lin Feng compete with him? While Noa Na was thinking this, He Shan's fist bombarded Lin Feng's chest, making all the members of the Blackwood tribe laugh out in joy. He Shan was monstrously strong, Lin Feng didn't even put up a fight. Boom! He Shan's fist crashed onto Lin Feng's chest, causing his clothes flutter in the wind. However, the smiles suddenly froze in place. They could all clearly see that Lin Feng was still standing, motionless, and his expression was unchanged. He hadn't moved at all and he was clearly still conscious. Lin Feng wasn't dead, he wasn't even injured. Huh? He Shan was shocked. He punched Lin Feng again, but Lin Feng remained completely motionless, like a huge mountain. He Shan was dumbstruck. He raised his head and looked at Lin Feng, who was now laughing because he found the situation terribly amusing. How's that possible? What's going on? He Shan's fist was shaking, everybody watching was astonished as well. Lin Feng had just been punched in the chest by He Shan multiple times, but he hadn't even moved an inch. So that's how you were planning to kill me? Laughed Lin Feng coldly. He looked perfectly calm and unaffected by what just happened. Everybody was stunned. They hadn't thought of the possibility that Lin Feng would be a strong cultivator. I warned you before about attacking me, said Lin Feng in a cold tone. He then slowly raised his hand, and then pointed his finger. Lin Feng's finger was pointing directly at He Shan. Suddenly, Lin Feng's finger started to move, which frightened He Shan, who started to quickly retreat. However, as weak as he was, would he have a chance to retreat? Lin Feng's finger immediately landed on He Shan's throat and slit from ear to ear. After grabbing his throat and convulsing, he slowly collapsed onto the ground, dead. He Shan is dead. He Mu was shocked, and his heart was now palpitating even more violently. He Mu was blankly staring at Lin Feng's figure. He would never have thought that the delicate and handsome-looking Lin Feng was actually a powerful cultivator. Because of a few words from them, you wanted to kill me. How ridiculous! Joked Lin Feng. He Mu wanted to kill him because of what the second young master said. He Mu was convinced that Lin Feng was a weak young noble and not a powerful cultivator. However, if he had known that the second young master from the wolves of the desert was only an insect in comparison with Lin Feng, he would have acted very differently. He was shocked by the turn of events. Chapter 452, Absolute Despair. Like he saw and ran. Sat Chapter Noa Na was dumbstruck as well when she saw Lin Feng attack. She also hadn't thought that Lin Feng would be so powerful. Lin Feng looked like a weak young noble from the city. When they first met, she assumed that he had run away from a noble family and entered the desert. Meeting them and then encountering the wolves of the desert had caused this situation. Interesting. Joked the second young master, interrupting everybody's train of thought. The second young master was still sitting atop his horse. He then smiled and said, I wouldn't have thought that the tribe would allow someone like you to cultivate. Even if you have cultivated a little bit, the truth is that everyone from the Blackwood tribe is useless. When Lin Feng heard him, he was surprised but immediately laughed and shook his head. That second young master was really a waste of space. He hadn't even been able to determine Lin Feng's strength from such a blatant display of power. Langya, take some people and bring me his head, said He Mu in an ice-cold tone while pulling a long face. Langya was the strongest warrior of the Blackwood tribe. He had already broken through to the fourth Ling Chi layer. He was using his famous weapon as well, his wolf-tooth club. His wolf-tooth club weighed 150 kilograms. With a single attack he could tear flesh and break bone. Langya was a huge muscular man who was bareback. He grabbed his wolf-tooth club and rested it onto his shoulder. He looked imposing and domineering. His eyes were large like copper bells, and he was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. I don't need anyone else to interfere, I will kill him myself, said Langya in an ice-cold way. He only took a few huge steps in Lin Feng's direction and immediately arrived in front of Lin Feng. Without the slightest bit of hesitation, he raised his wolf-tooth club and was aiming at Lin Feng's head. While attacking with his weapon, a whistling sound filled the air as an extreme force crashed through the air. The members of the Blackwood tribe were staring at his weapon. Lin Feng had no possible escape from that wolf-tooth club. But at that moment, everybody was astonished. The wolf-tooth club had struck down, but Lin Feng wasn't there anymore. He suddenly appeared by Langya's side. Boom! The wolf-tooth club landed on the ground and the shock made Langya's entire body tremble. The crowd then suddenly saw a strange action from Langya. He fell onto the ground and started crawling. He didn't have the power to stand up. Blood could then be seen dripping onto the golden sand, turning it a deep shade of red. Finally, the crowd realized what had happened and started shaking. Their hearts were racing. The strongest warrior of the Blackwood tribe was dead. But, they didn't even see how he died. The only thing they knew was that he'd been killed by Lin Feng. There was no doubt about that. Lin Feng had killed him in the blink of an eye. If you are planning on killing me, everyone here should join forces. 1 or 2 people will just waste time, said Lin Feng indifferently, which astonished everyone present. Lin Feng was telling everyone there join forces and fight together against him. He Mu was gnashing his teeth and fixedly staring at Lin Feng, but he didn't give another order. Trash. Go together and kill him, then bring me his woman. Shouted the second young master impatiently. He couldn't stand watching this any longer. Lin Feng turned his head towards him and released a monstrous ice-cold energy. It was extremely sharp and piercingly cold, which made the second young master start to shiver. He felt like ice-cold needles were piercing through his skin. Second young master, we will kill him and bring you that girl to play with, said a few bandits while galloping towards Lin Feng. However, at that moment, he had already released a powerful deadly energy which covered the sky. Those who were attacking Lin Feng were astonished and immediately stopped moving. They didn't dare move against Lin Feng anymore. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng suddenly disappeared from his initial position and appeared in front of the person who had just spoke out, humiliating Meng Qing and Lin Feng. Huh! When that person saw Lin Feng's ice-cold eyes, he started to shiver. He looked puzzled. He was mounted atop an armored horse and should be looking down at Lin Feng, but surprisingly Lin Feng was stood eye level with him. How was that possible? The man's eyes then followed Lin Feng's body down, and when he realized what was going on, his heart almost leapt from his chest and a shiver ran down his spine. His face looked terrified and hopeless, because at that moment, Lin Feng was floating in the air. He was walking on air, which meant that Lin Feng was at least a Xian Qi layer cultivator. Thump. 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 The sound of everyone beating hearts was audible. The one on the horse was still shaking and his facial expression was hideous. Xian Qi layer. Xian Qi layer. Those were the only words that filled his mind. Xian Qi layer. He wasn't the only one. When the others saw Lin Feng's body float through the air, they all froze in shock, like statues. Lin Feng was a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. But he was so young. He Mu was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. He had given his tribe the order to kill an extremely strong cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. On top of that, he was extremely young, which meant he was talented. He Mu was regretting everything. He was finally realizing that his daughter was right. Lin Feng, from start to finish, had never even thought about running away. Otherwise, why would he come back to the Blackwood tribe with her, only to flee afterwards? On top of that, Lin Feng had never seemed like he was scared of the wolves of the desert. The most ridiculous thing was that He Mu had never even considered that such a thing might be possible. After he heard He Shan tell him about the wolves of the desert, he had only thought about how to appease them and never considered anything else. He had tied his daughter up and delivered him to the enemy. At that moment, he was realizing that in his panic, he had sided against Lin Feng, who was much stronger than the wolves of the desert. Thinking back, he should have treated Lin Feng as a respected guest. However, what really happened was ridiculous. He Mu had been so scared of a weakling, and because of that weakling, he ordered people to kill an extremely strong cultivator, Lin Feng. The second young master and the tribe were astonished. Lin Feng had the strength of the Xian Qi layer. What did you say a moment ago? Asked Lin Feng while looking at the man who had just humiliated Meng Qing and him. His voice was cold and emotionless. The man could only tremble and look blankly at Lin Feng. He kept shaking his head and saying, I didn't say a word. Nothing. Lin Feng was smiling. His smile was particularly resplendent. He then released a monstrous deadly energy which burst into the sky and enveloped the man's body. The energy was so oppressive that he was almost falling to the ground. Die, said Lin Feng. A bright and resplendent light flashed through the atmosphere and fell towards the bandit. A spot of blood then emerged between his eyebrows. After collapsing to the ground, his eyes were still wide open, but apart from a few convulsions, his body was lifeless. Thump. 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 Everyone's hearts were pounding while looking at the dead body beneath Lin Feng, who was still floating in the air. PSSH. PSSH, blood suddenly sprayed into the air. All of the people who were just rushing to attack Lin Feng together had collapsed and fell from their horses. The crowd could only see the light from sword chi, but they never saw a sword being unsheathed. Some of the men urged their horses and started galloping in the opposite direction. However, anyone who tried to run was immediately killed under the sword lights. Countless silhouettes were falling from horsebacks one after the other, they were all dead. It was terrifying, everyone was terrified and panic-stricken. Fear continued to fill the people's hearts as they then saw Lin Feng slowly rise higher into the air. A moment before, they looked down on Lin Feng. However, they were now looking up at him and admiring his strength. Lin Feng, to them, was as dazzling as the sun. "You want to kill me?" Lin Feng's arm streaked across the sky, he was surrounded by the midday sunlight which made his figure seem even more majestic. A few bandits let out horrible shrieks and their bodies flew away. Lin Feng had taken their lives. "You humiliated Meng Qing." Lin Feng raised his hand again and his sword light shot through across the sky. Immediately after, more blood splashed into the air. He was killing each of the wolves of the desert one by one. Lin Feng didn't stop killing. His sword light was dancing across the sky as blood filled the air. At that moment, Lin Feng was still floating in the sky, he looked like a god of death. He was absolutely merciless as he continued his massacre. The members of the Blackwood tribe were all astonished and fixedly staring at Lin Feng. Their jaws were agape. They were dumbstruck and had fallen into despair. In what seemed like an instant, he had already killed a great number of people. In no time, he had slaughtered hundreds of people from the wolves of the desert, and at that moment, only one was left, the second young master. Chapter 453, The Massacre. Sunday chapter like E equals lost, you. The second young master of the wolves of the desert looked around him and saw that all of his comrades were already dead. He was still on his horseback, but he was shaking with fear. He looked terrified. "You want to kill me?" said Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone while walking towards the second young master. The second young master wanted to kill Lin Feng. Could he? At that moment, all of his followers had been killed by Lin Feng, now his life was in Lin Feng's hands. "You wanted to kidnap my wife and force her become your wife?" said Lin Feng while releasing some deadly energy which caused fear to penetrate deep into the second young master's heart. "I am the second young master of the wolves of the desert. I am the son of the king of the wolves. Outside the city, we are the most influential and powerful group. If you kill me, an endless number of people will hunt you down and slaughter you," said the second young master. His voice grew louder and louder, he was attempting to restore his courage. He was the son of the king of the wolves, Lin Feng wouldn't dare to kill him. "There is no need for them to hunt me down. After killing you, I will just wait here for them," said Lin Feng indifferently. He didn't even feel the slightest bit intimidated by his interlocutor's threat. Lin Feng even looked like he was going to burst into a fit of laughter. "In 3 seconds, I am going to end your life," said Lin Feng, which stupefied the second young master. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. Said Lin Feng while smiling coldly at the second young master who was now galloping away like a madman. A sword rose into the air, it was a scorching sword. "Don't!" shouted the second young master in despair, but it was useless. After that, the light from the sword crashed into his body and turned his internal organs into ashes. His eyes were wide in disbelief. Immediately after, the remains of his body fell to the ground, he was clearly dead. The majestic second young master of the wolves of the desert had just died with his eyes wide open. Lin Feng looked as emotionless. He slowly turned around and looked at the members of the Blackwood tribe, and more particularly at He Mu. Lin Feng still looked like he was going to burst into laughter. He Mu's lips were twitching, he wanted to say something but the words weren't coming out. Because of a few words from the second young master, he wanted to kill Lin Feng. At that moment, he realized that Lin Feng had single-handedly killed all the wolves of the desert. How ridiculous had he been to want to kill Lin Feng? A sharp sound filled the air and Noa Na's ties were cut. At that moment, she was staring at Lin Feng and she was speechless. Lin Feng was so young and he had already broken through to the Xian Qi layer. What a terrifying talent. Lin Feng, leave quickly. The wolves of the desert will be coming for you. They won't just let something like this go. Take advantage of this opportunity and leave. Noa Na suddenly shouted. Outside of Tianya Hage, the wolves of the desert were the largest power, and they were the undisputed strongest. They had many extremely strong cultivators. They had a dozen tribe heads who were all at the Xian Qi layer. They would definitely hunt down Lin Feng and avenge their people. When Lin Feng heard Noa Na, he shook his head and smiled. Leave? Why did he need to leave? Lin Feng, even though you are extremely strong, the wolves of the desert are neither weaklings nor cowards, they will definitely come for you. Said Noa Na, she was extremely anxious. Noa Na, that's enough. Young Master Lin Feng is certainly strong enough to cope with the wolves of the desert, said He Mu at that moment. He then continued, Young Master Lin Feng, I was blind before, I failed to appreciate your kindness. I hope that we can find a way for you to forgive me. You are always welcome to stay in my tribe and we will properly receive you, as venerable guests. Lin Feng looked amused when he saw He Mu's face. He had killed that group who belonged to the wolves of the desert, he had even killed the second young master. Those bandits would inevitably seek revenge. If they sent people to the Blackwood tribe and found out that Lin Feng wasn't there, they would slaughter everyone. Therefore, He Mu was being very polite and friendly, hoping that Lin Feng would forget that they had just tried to kill him. Get out of my sight, I don't want to see you again. Said Lin Feng coldly, which stupefied He Mu. He then replied politely, If you remain here, I will make sure to stay out of your sight. While talking, He Mu moved back into the crowd, as if he really intended to stay out of sight, like Lin Feng said. Lin Feng and Meng Qing didn't leave the Blackwood tribe, they wanted to stay with Noa Na. Concerning He Mu, he kept casting his eyes to the distance. If Lin Feng left, nobody could save the Blackwood tribe. One day passed and then another. Outside of the Blackwood tribe, the sound of galloping horses could be heard on the horizon. The galloping horses were making the ground shake, giving people a feeling of majesty and pride. But the people of the Blackwood tribe weren't excited at all, they were all terrified. The wolves of the desert had come for their revenge. The ground continued to shake, a cloud of golden sand could be seen on the horizon. Everybody in the tribe remained silent as the cloud of sand grew closer, they were all trembling with fear. The group of horses then stopped outside of the tribe. Immediately after, the one who seemed to be their leader said, Kill everybody. Slaughter every person from the Blackwood tribe. Yes. The sound of galloping horses filled the air again, but this time they were attacking the Blackwood tribe. Die. A terrifying and cruel chi dashed into the skies and crashed into the crowd of people. All the people who had been touched by that terrifying chi died. Ah! Ah! Help! Blood-curdling shrieks filled the air. The wolves of the desert had only one thing in mind, slaughter. Without saying a word, they had already killed a huge number of people, it was a bloodbath. In a different corner of the tribe, He Mu could clearly sense that his people were being massacred. His silhouette flickered and he immediately moved towards Lin Feng's room. After a short time, he appeared in front of Lin Feng and said, Young Master Lin Feng, the wolves of the desert have come to slaughter us. So what? Said Lin Feng coldly while looking at He Mu. They have come to kill you. Said He Mu, whose facial expression was twitching. If they try to kill me, I will of course deal with them. I don't need you to worry about such things. Now, get lost. Said Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone. He looked absolutely emotionless. But the wolves of the desert are slaughtering the members of my tribe. Said He Mu, he still wasn't leaving, he was expecting Lin Feng to help. What does that have to do with me? Said Lin Feng, whose voice was getting colder. I was hoping that you would show yourself to the wolves of the desert, and stop them. Lin Feng burst into laughter, an evil laughter. He took a step forwards and stood in front of He Mu. His face turned ice cold and he said, "The Blackwood tribe wanted to kill me on multiple occasions, and now that you are in a critical situation, you want me to protect you? Is that a joke? I, Lin Feng, am not a fool," said Lin Feng, and at the same time he released a terrifying deadly energy. "If you don't get out of my sight immediately, I will kill you." Chapter 454, Savage Thoughts. Likey don't know what to do. Sunday chapter. Some deadly energy pressed against He Mu's body. He was so scared that his legs became weak. He regretted everything and felt hopeless. He turned around and his silhouette flickered as he ran away. It was over, the Blackwood tribe would soon be destroyed. They had tried to kill Lin Feng and now they wanted his protection. Was such a thing possible? Lin Feng wasn't a saint, he wouldn't fight to save the Blackwood tribe that wanted him dead. Even if he was going to fight in the future, he wouldn't lift a finger to help them. He Mu walked through the territory of the tribe and all he could see were the scattered corpses of his tribe members. A sudden pain invaded his heart, everything was his fault. Not far in front of He Mu, there was a person riding atop a fiery red wolf. That person looked majestic and cruel. He Mu's silhouette flickered and in a flash, he appeared in front of the person. Then, He Mu said in a very respectful way, "Venerable and respectable King of the Wolves, Your Highness, I am the head of the Blackwood tribe. I am terribly grieved by the second young master's death, but it is neither my fault nor that of my people. I had already pledged my loyalty to the second young master. I had promised to devote my entire life to him. The one who killed the second young master isn't one of us, his name is Lin Feng, he is a young man. Look, he is in there. I beg of you, Your Highness, please forgive us." The king looked at He Mu indifferently and then looked in the direction in which He Mu was pointing. The king of wolves, expressionless, said, "Fire wolf, let's go." The fire wolf heard the king and its eyes diffused a dazzling light. Apart from its dangerous eyes, the fire wolf's fur was entirely red. "I beg you, please forgive my tribe," said He Mu while bowing in front of the king. The king moved next to He Mu and smiled, "I forgive you, so you can all die happily." When He Mu heard the king, he was stupefied. Immediately after, the wolf howled and an incredible scorching hot chi emerged. The fire wolf started to breathe fire around its surroundings. In a flash, He Mu was a burnt corpse. He Mu had died, devoured by the flames. The king of the wolves had shown no mercy at all. "Let's go," said the king of the wolves while walking in the direction which He Mu pointed. At the same time, a group of people were following closely behind him. Their deadly chi was thick and dense. Those people were also all releasing their murderous intent in that direction. "I don't need so many people to follow me, a few is enough. The others can continue massacring the tribe members. None of them are to be left alive," said the king of the wolves in a deep voice. Many people turned back and continued looking for members of the Blackwood tribe who may have run or gone into hiding. They were going to keep killing until no one was left. At that moment, Lin Feng was sitting on the roof of the house where he had been staying. He was calmly looking at the silhouettes on the horizon, they were moving in his direction. Lin Feng looked absolutely carefree and unaffected by it though. Very quickly, the king of the wolves and the others arrived to where Lin Feng was sitting at. They raised their heads and looked at the calm-looking young man. They were all surprised. That young man was very brave. Didn't he know why they were here? Didn't he know that they were going to kill him? "Wolf King, I will kill him for you," said someone who was standing next to the king of the wolves. He wanted to show his loyalty. "All right, Luo-san, go and take his life. Use your sabers to behead him, then bring his head back to me," said the king while nodding. "Don't worry, Wolf King, my sabers have grown thirsty after not tasting blood in such a long time," said Luo Sen while moving forwards. He was slowly approaching Lin Feng. He then raised his head and looked at Lin Feng, who was still sitting on the roof with a carefree appearance. "Don't worry, I will not kill you slowly, my sabers will first slowly slice away at your flesh, slash by slash, until, eventually, your head falls down," said Luo Sen in a cold and bloodthirsty manner. Lin Feng was gazing into the distance, calmly and serenely, as if Luo Sen hadn't opened his mouth at all. Luo Sen initially wanted to scare Lin Feng, but it didn't work. A bloodthirsty look appeared in his eyes, he looked ferocious and wild. He didn't even look like a human being anymore, he looked like a bloodthirsty wolf. Lin Feng glanced at Luo Sen, and when he saw that bestial-looking face, he was stupefied. He looked like a hideous wolf. "Remember, the one who will take your life is one of the heads of the wolves of the desert. My name is Yao Lang Luo Sr." When he finished talking, Luo Sen threw himself at Lin Feng. In his bestial-looking eyes appeared a fiery red light. He really looked like a wolf at that moment. His right hand suddenly became longer and what looked like 5 sharp blades appeared. They looked piercingly cold and extremely sharp, besides an ice-cold evil chi was emerging from them. Those were the sabers he had been talking about. Each and every single member of the wolves of the desert was smiling evilly, as if they could already see Lin Feng's body in front of them. At the same time, Lin Feng released a terrifying deadly chi which rolled through the air and enveloped Luo Sen's body. That monstrous deadly chi made Luo Sen suddenly feel extremely cold and he started to shiver from head to toe. He suddenly looked surprised and was scared. "Die," said Lin Feng while releasing a pure deadly energy that was as sharp as a sword, which pierced straight towards Luo. Senator Luo Sen was astonished. His sharp claws immediately landed on the deadly energy, emitting a sharp metallic sound. However, at that moment, Lin Feng was already standing and had started moving. He released more deadly energy and it slowly formed a black sword in his hand. His sword was unleashed and a monstrous amount of deadly energy emerged from it and crashed into Luo Sen. His saber claws were shattered instantly. "Aowoo!" Luo Sen howled like a wolf. The black sword then immediately penetrated into his body and sliced him apart. Luo Sen was dead. Lin Feng took another step through the air and moved towards the other members of the wolves of the desert. He was still releasing a monstrous amount of deadly energy. Initially, Luo Sen's corpse was behind Lin Feng, however, without anyone noticing, the corpse disappeared. It had disappeared completely, as if it had never been there. It was very strange. The other members of the wolves of the desert were stupefied. Lin Feng's strength was unbelievable. That scary deadly energy was surrounding them and they were all terrified. "Let's kill him together," said the king of the wolves. The people who were facing Lin Feng with him at that moment were all heads of the subdivisions of their tribe. Anyone who tried to take on their combined force would die. They were such a large and powerful group that they had to be divided into subgroups. They were living in packs, like wolves. Everybody was scared of them. If anyone dared to threaten them, they would join hands and kill that person together. Their eyes were all ferocious and bestial, just like a wolf pack. Boom! Lin Feng took another step and released more deadly energy which soared into the skies. Some deadly energy surrounded the group and started to suppress them. The wolves of the desert were now realizing how terrifyingly strong this young man was. Lin Feng took another step and it seemed like the ground was going to collapse. His deadly energy grew even more powerful and applied a greater pressure. "Destroy him!" shouted the king furiously. They couldn't wait any longer, they had to attack and kill Lin Feng immediately. After hearing the king, all those heads threw themselves at Lin Feng. Bestial lights were twinkling in their eyes. Lin Feng didn't have the impression that he was fighting other people, he had the impression that they were all ferocious beasts. "Die!" Lin Feng's voice filled the air as a sword descended from the sky and immediately sliced through multiple people. Those people howled with pain as they fell down onto the ground and died. This time, when their silhouettes disappeared, the king's body started to shake. He grabbed their bodies with his hands and in a flash, their corpses turned into fiery red smoke which penetrated into his body. Huh! Lin Feng was surprised, he didn't understand what was happening. What technique was that? But immediately after, his deadly energy became even more powerful and he continued attacking with his sword. He continued to kill his way through the group, one person fell after another. The king was shaking, he took a deep breath and continued to absorb the fiery red smoke from those people. It looked particularly frightening. But the faces of those who hadn't died didn't change at all. They looked like this was absolutely normal. In their eyes, there was only savage thoughts. They wanted to tear apart Lin Feng. However, they were much weaker than Lin Feng and it was obvious, trying to kill Lin Feng was the same thing as willingly courting death. Each time Lin Feng moved his sword, someone died. With every movement he would take another life. Lin Feng realized at that moment that each time he killed someone, they were being absorbed by the king of the wolves, and each time he absorbed that smoke, his chi was becoming more rampant, and he was thus becoming stronger and stronger. Chapter 455, The Four-Tailed Wolf. Likey, this is Monday's chapter. Sorry for delay, I had class so I couldn't do it until today. At that moment, Lin Feng stood with his deadly sword in his hand, its deadly energy had enveloped the Wolf King's body. The king was glaring at Lin Feng and releasing a coarse and wild chi. The king hadn't thought that Lin Feng would be so powerful, but he didn't look scared at all, his eyes were only filled with endless ferocity, his eyes actually looked like those of a wolf. Human yet not a human, beast yet not a beast, said Lin Feng. His opponent gave him the feeling that he was neither a beast nor a human, he just looked extremely cruel and ferocious. Surprisingly, he was able to absorb power from his dead comrades and turn it into his own power. Aowu, the Wolf King howled loudly while repeatedly shaking his head, his actions seemed just like a wolf. He looked particularly bestial. He didn't even pay attention to what Lin Feng was saying and his eyes continued to grow more ferocious and bestial. So that's how it is, the Wolf King from the wolves of the desert, must be an actual wolf. Lin Feng raised his deadly sword and firmly pointed it towards the Wolf King. Lin Feng's sword suddenly slashed towards the Wolf King at full speed. The Wolf King was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. He crouched to the floor and his hand started to transform into a pair of horrifying red claws which glistened in the sunlight. Die! Shouted Lin Feng. His deadly energy filled the air as his sword descended. The Wolf King let out a violent growl and launched himself from the back of his fire wolf. His speed was incredible, his red claws revealed their sharp edges as they slashed towards Lin Feng. Suddenly, a terrifying fire chi emerged from the claws which collided with Lin Feng's sword, causing a fiery explosion in the air. The sword chi started to disperse, leaving Lin Feng astonished. After having absorbed the power of his tribe members, the king had become unimaginably strong. At that moment, he had strength similar to the fourth Xian Qi layer. Ah woo 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 woo. The Wolf King howled once again in a high-pitched tone and threw himself towards Lin Feng with all his might. Lin Feng was shocked, the Wolf King moved so fast that he seemed to vanish from sight. Lin Feng took a step forwards and a rumbling sound filled the air. Lin Feng released waves and waves of deadly energy into the air, but it hardly slowed the Wolf King's speed. Die! Shouted Lin Feng again. He continued to release more deadly energy with increased power. It then collided with the Wolf King's fire energy, which created a stalemate between the two energies. The atmosphere was filled with the sound of collisions as the energies continued to fight against each other to decide a victor. Die! Lin Feng's was surrounded by his deadly energy which was growing denser as he continued to release it into the atmosphere. The sword in his hand had started to turn a deeper shade of black, it looked ominous. Lin Feng didn't retreat, he continued to charge forwards. His pure chi had started to transform into deadly energy which bombarded the atmosphere, causing the Wolf King's heart to tremble. The bloodthirsty eyes of the Wolf King gradually revealed a look of surprise. Lin Feng's deadly energy was becoming denser and more powerful over time. Woo. The Wolf King howled again while looking to the sky. A sea of flames burst from his body and he threw himself towards Lin Feng, who was slashing down with his sword. Neither side was backing down, they were both pressing forwards gain. Two behemoths were clashing. Boom! 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 The atmosphere was shaking and shockwaves spread through the air each time the deadly energy and flames collided. It started to form a hurricane-like wind across the surroundings. All around them, the scenery was desolate, everything in their surroundings had been completely destroyed. The people in the distance were surprised when they noticed their fight. How powerful! They were obviously surprised by the Wolf King's strength, but Lin Feng's strength surprised them even more. He was incredibly young and already had such a terrifying strength. Noa Na was especially astonished. She was standing on the eaves of a house while watching the Wolf King and Lin Feng's battle. Her mouth had grown completely dry and she was unable to speak any words. It was too shocking. Lin Feng was even stronger than what she had imagined, it was inconceivable. At that moment, Noa Na looked perplexed. Even though Lin Feng had saved her from the second young master, her father had died and all the other members of the tribe were being exterminated. Even if her tribe initially wanted to deliver her to the enemy, she was still very close to many members of the tribe, and they were still her family. This calamity could have been avoided. Lin Feng's strength was sufficient to deal with the king of the wolves. If her father hadn't ordered people to act against Lin Feng, their relationship with Lin Feng wouldn't have deteriorated. After that, the tribe moved to kill Lin Feng because of the second young master. If they had welcomed Lin Feng and not acted against him, everything would have been different. Boom! Another collision caused the surroundings to shake, which interrupted Noa Na's train of thought. She then turned her attention back to the fight. She only saw Lin Feng's sword slashing down. The Wolf King couldn't bear the pressure, he started to move back. Lin Feng's deadly energy was too frightening. On top of that, it continued to grow more powerful as more deadly energy was released by Lin Feng. It was incredibly scary, it never stopped growing in power. The Wolf King's ferocious eyes looked even more bestial than before. He howled in a deep voice and moved back. However, at that moment, he sensed a terrifying deadly energy envelop his body. He raised his head and saw Lin Feng's silhouette in the sky above him. He was holding his deadly sword, which was now a deep black, surrounded by bright flames. They looked like the flames of a scorching sun. Besides, the powerful sun was shining onto the sword, which seemed to increase the ferocity of the flames. When Lin Feng's sword descended, the sky was torn asunder, leaving a fiery black trail in its path. It looked like a black and red rainbow had formed above their battle. The black deadly energy and red flames slashed across the sky. The sword moved at an inconceivable speed, it appeared out of nowhere, just like the wind. The Wolf King was stupefied but immediately released its terrifying bestial chi, which exploded in every direction. Woo! The Wolf King howled in anger. Noa Nan, who was watching the battle, was deeply shocked. At that moment, the Wolf King's skin started to tear off as he actually started to transform into a wolf. The wolf looked to the sky and gave a long howl. He was an actual wolf. Flames started to fill the air and surround the wolf. There was no rumbling or sound of a collision, there was only a subtle sound that pierced into people's ears. It was a terrifying screeching sound. A large area around the Wolf King was burned to ashes. The Wolf King and Lin Feng's silhouettes disappeared from sight. There was only raging flames surrounding them. The flaming Wolf King swiftly moved through the flames. The fire wolf mount, which hadn't moved, suddenly turned into a red smoke which rushed towards the Wolf King. It swallowed the fire wolf's power, and then the flames around its body suddenly grew more intense. It was magnificent. A beast. The people watching were astonished and their hearts were unsettled. He was a beast, the king of the wolves of the deserts was a ferocious beast. Lin Feng's silhouette could once again be seen in the air. He was fixedly staring at the wolf. Those eyes really looked like those of a wolf. Lin Feng's heart was shaking as well. How was that possible? Lin Feng had already seen a ferocious beast during its transformation process. Only a Tian-level beast could transform into a human, but the king of the wolves didn't seem to be at the Tian level. At that moment, an intense fire started burning around its body and it released a monstrous and terrifying beast chi. In front of everybody, the tail of the wolf grew longer and started to split apart. 3 more tails were formed. The wolf had suddenly become much bigger and now had 4 tails. 4 tails, Lin Feng didn't understand. After the 4th tail grew, the wolf seemed to stop its transformation. At that moment, the Wolf King, which was an actual beast, was still glaring at Lin Feng. It looked hideous, ferocious and cruel. How ferocious? Lin Feng didn't understand. The king of the wolves of the desert was an actual wolf. Aya! A sharp scream filled the atmosphere. Noana was the person who screamed out. When she saw the terrifying beast, she was overcome with terror. Her eyes were wide and filled with dread. Noana wasn't the only one to react. The members of the wolves of the desert, they were ordinary people and were so shocked that they stopped moving. They were just blankly staring at the wolf surrounded by flames. A 4-tailed wolf. Everyone, at that moment, thought about the same terrifying story which involved fire wolves. That story went back to ancient times. All the people watching had conflicting feelings, because they never believed that the story was anything but fiction. They didn't think such a thing was possible. The wolves of the desert. Desert. Wolves. When people thought about it, they couldn't help but tremble in fear. The name, Wolves of the Desert, had another meaning. Chapter 456, The Ancient Legend, Tuesday's chapter. In Tianya Hage, there was a legend which came from the ancient past. In ancient times, Tianya Hage didn't exist, there was only an extremely vast open land. The land was constantly exposed to extremely high temperatures which caused the ground to crumble into sand, forming the desert. Under the ground, deep under the land, there was an ancient fire which radiated endless heat. That fire burned for eons until it finally started to gain consciousness. Several parts of the fire transformed into wolves. That was the legend surrounding how fire wolves emerged in the desert. Besides, fire wolves were known for having special powers. Some of them were proficient in using powerful illusions. Even if the wolves hadn't reached the Tian level, they were able to use the illusions to appear human. After that, the wolves would appear no different from anyone else. Nobody was ever able to identify a fire wolf's illusion. Time passed by and the legend turned into a story about the humans who entered a bloody war against the fire wolves, with the humans emerging victorious. However, every few hundred years, fire wolves would emerge from under the desert and the bloody cycle would repeat. After countless bloody wars, the humans built the city of Tianya Hage and sealed the ground surrounding the city. However, outside of Tianya Hage, there was still a vast desert for them to emerge. The wolves didn't try to break the seal in Tianya Hage, instead they would emerge in the outer desert and begin their rampage. A sea of fire wolves would appear outside of Tianya Hage every few hundred years. Most people didn't believe the ancient legend, but they knew the story regarding the bloody wars. Since the last time the wolves emerged, the story had faded from people's memories. Even though the king was riding a fire wolf, no one would ever connect it to the story regarding fire wolves. However, at that moment, the Wolf King had transformed into a 4-tailed fire wolf, which filled everyone with dread. Those tails were a sign of an upcoming catastrophe. The number of tails indicated the level of the wolf. The Wolf King had 4 tails, which proved it was a 4th-level Xian beast. If it had 5 tails, it would mean that it was a level 5 Xian beast. The external part of Tianya Hage is doomed, everything is going to be destroyed. thought the tribe members while shaking. Those fire wolves were extremely ferocious and vicious, they were known for their bloody massacres. The emergence of fire wolves would be a terrifying event, it would cause the desert to be dyed red with blood. In fact, all the leaders from the wolves of the desert must have been fire wolves which had transformed themselves to appear as humans, that was how the Wolf King was able to absorb their power. The tails of the Wolf King were swinging through the air, its eyes looked cruel and it was fixedly glaring at Lin Feng. It then said, "Initially, we wanted to start at a later date, but you have forced us to speed up our plans." The wolf was still speaking in human tongue, its voice was ice cold. After it finished speaking, a terrifying fire chi filled the air and the wolf disappeared into the sand. Lin Feng wasn't born in the desert, he didn't know about the story regarding fire wolves. He frowned and released a terrifying deadly energy and rushed forwards, he wasn't going to let the Wolf King escape. Lin Feng. However, at that moment, Noa Na shouted out which surprised Lin Feng. He turned his head and looked towards Noa Na as if he didn't understand. He only saw that Noa Na looked absolutely terrified. Lin Feng was confused by the turn of events. It seemed like everybody there was terrified by the wolves of the desert. "Lin Feng, let's leave quickly. We have to flee the desert and move to the city," shouted Noa Na, who was panic-stricken. At the same time, the members of the wolves of the desert also started to escape at full speed. Everyone was crazily trying to escape, they rushed through the desert like lunatics. "What's going on, Noa Na?" asked Lin Feng. He had no idea what had caused the people to run scared. The Wolf King had turned into a wolf. Lin Feng was surprised, but not that much. Could it be that Noa Na was surprisingly terrified because of that? But at that moment, Lin Feng suddenly felt a tremble run through his body, he looked astonished. Meng Qing and Lin Feng glanced at each other, they both looked extremely surprised. The fire chi which they had sensed under the ground was the ancient fire from legends. At that moment, the fire chi was growing stronger, as if a volcanic eruption was close, it was a disaster. "Let's go, we have to run, otherwise we won't make it. I will tell you the details on the way." Noa Na ignored the fact that Lin Feng and Meng Qing were confused, she immediately rushed over to grab Meng Qing's hand and started running towards Lin Feng and said, "Hurry up. We have to go and reach the city if we want to keep our lives." Lin Feng was stupefied. It seemed like everyone was terrified because the fire chi beneath the desert. "Meng Qing!" shouted Lin Feng. Meng Qing immediately understood and rose into the air while holding on to Noa Na. Noa Na let out a squeal of surprise. She had always wondered what it would be like to fly through the sky, but at that moment, she only felt nauseous. Meng Qing had only grabbed hold of one of her arms, suddenly another hand grabbed Noa Na's other arm, she turned her head and noticed Lin Feng had flown over. Meng Qing and Lin Feng were each holding one of her arms as they flew through the sky. How strong! Lin Feng and his wife are both so powerful, thought Noa Na in surprise. Flying through the air was something that she had always dreamt of, and at that moment her dream had come true. However, this was not how she had imagined it, she wasn't as excited and happy as when she dreamt about it. Her father was dead and her tribe had been destroyed, on top of that, the fire wolves were about to emerge for another bloodbath. "Noa Na, what's going on?" The pure chi was whistling through the air as they flew through the clouds, which made Lin Feng's voice hard to hear over the whistling sounds. Lin Feng, approximately every 100 years, the fire wolves emerged from the depths of the earth. These wolves were born in a sea of fire, and when they are unleashed into the desert, they started a massacre and moved to attack Jinya Hage. With the powerful wind hitting her face, it was difficult for Noa Na to form a sentence. She then added, "Those fire wolves were able to use illusions. The leaders of the wolves of the desert are actually all fire wolves that disguise themselves as humans. Since the wolves have already started to emerge, and didn't immediately attack, it means that they have developed a larger strategy over the past 100 years. So you are telling me that since the Wolf King was a fire wolf, it means that there is an army of fire wolves that have been plotting underground? They were not attacking the humans previously because they were preparing something on a larger scale. When Lin Feng heard Noa Na's explanation, he remained silent for a moment and then continued to question her. He was surprised. The fire wolves came from the depths of the earth. It seemed like the fire chi that Meng Qing and Lin Feng had sensed wasn't an illusion. Indeed, they were preparing a large-scale strategy, but because they identified them and because the wolves they were using for the plan were killed by you, they will attack while they still have the element of surprise," said Noa Na while nodding. Her hair was messily fluttering through the wind, her forehead was wrinkled and her eyes filled with dread. An army of fire wolves would soon emerge. "Fire wolves," whispered Lin Feng. He gazed into the distance and saw countless fire wolves emerging from the sand. The wolves varied in size, some were large and others were small, some only had a single tail while others had numerous tails. "It's really happening," Noa Na was stupefied and continued, "Lin Feng, we need to hurry, we have to take shelter in Tianya Hage as soon as possible. Each time the wolves emerge, some monstrously strong fire wolves will be leading them. It's terrifying. The wolves will continue to emerge until the desert is filled with a sea of wolves, and then they will begin their attacks on Tianya Hage." "How far is Tianya Hage from here?" asked Lin Feng. "About 500 kilometers. Replied Noa Na, which shocked Lin Feng. "Another 500 kilometers. It seems like we are going to have to fight with the army of fire wolves," said Lin Feng while smiling wryly. 500 kilometers. Meng Qing and Lin Feng couldn't possibly carry Noa Na over such a long distance. First, they would consume too much pure qi attempting it, and second they weren't able to cover that distance, especially while carrying another person. "Noa Na, we have broken through to the Xian Qi layer, but we cannot continuously fly, we need to use pure qi in order for us to fly. Only cultivators of the Tian Qi layer are able to fly freely through the sky," said Lin Feng, then continued, "I have a large number of purity stones but it's possible that it won't be enough to reach Tianya Hage." Noa Na was speechless, so would they have to fight against the wolves? "Don't worry, Noa Na. With Meng Qing and me here, a few fire wolves won't be much of a problem," said Lin Feng while smiling. His voice sounded comforting and he was attempting to lighten Noa Na's mood. But Lin Feng's mind was still reeling, he was shocked that there was a beast swarm which could emerge from underground. Chapter 457, Crystal Wednesday. Chapter Lin Feng, Meng Qing and Noa Na were still floating amongst the clouds and looking across the boundless desert. More and more fire wolves emerged from the ground, they were looking for humans to satisfy their bloodlust. Noa Na looked exhausted and desperate. She had encountered another catastrophe. It was the worst catastrophe that could happen to all the tribes living outside Tianya Hage, it would be a one-sided slaughter. Lin Feng looked expressionless but his heart felt heavy. He had tempered his heart through killing, but he wasn't emotionless. Because he had lived through so many massacres already, he was accustomed to people dying. He didn't have the powers of a god. Lin Feng wasn't able to directly oppose fate and save everybody. If he tried, death would come quickly. On the path of cultivation, he had to remain determined and clear-headed, he couldn't let his heart be swayed by the cruelty of fate. On the ground, there was a group of fire wolves that seemed to notice them flying in the sky, which caused the wolves to howl aggressively. "I can see some of fire wolves transforming into humans." At that moment, Noa Na couldn't believe her eyes. She had just noticed an extremely strong fire wolf transforming into a human. Seeing it in person caused her mind to race. "It's over." Noa Na's face turned deathly pale. She had never encountered a fire wolf outbreak and she was just noticing how terrible it was going to be. "What's wrong, Noa Na?" asked Lin Feng. "Quickly. First they are going to take control of the outer desert. When they're done with that, they will try and infiltrate Tianya Hage before they begin their attack. Those wolves can transform into the shape of humans after all," said Noa Na in a low voice. Even though her voice was low, Meng Qing and Lin Feng clearly understood her meaning, leaving them slightly shocked. "Noa Na, you mean that Tianya Hage will block entry to everyone attempting to enter the city?" At that moment, the fire wolves that were emerging in the desert could transform into humans. Would the people of Tianya Hage foolishly accept people into the city before an attack? How would they know if the people they accepted were wolves or not? The people of Tianya Hage are extremely powerful. The people who do not belong to the city are thrown into the desert to be the first wave against the wolves. When the wolves attack, the first to be killed are always the tribes of the desert," whispered Noa Na. "The people inside the city disdain the tribes that live in the desert. Now the wolves are emerging to attack, they will not let anyone into the city, even though we will all die." Lin Feng was surprised. Noa Na was right, there was no way they would ever let them into the city. "Maybe I'm thinking too much," suddenly said Noa Na while smiling and trying to console herself. The three of them were still flying through the sky as they discussed. Lin Feng's quickly retrieved some purity stones. He started to absorb the qi from the purity stone to increase their speed. After some time, Lin Feng looked at Meng Qing to his left and said, "Meng Qing, we need to find a safe place to land." At that moment, Lin Feng was well aware that while flying, he was burning his qi much faster than his body could replenish it. His head had started to grow dizzy and his vision had started to blur. Meng Qing would probably be feeling the same. "All right." Meng Qing slightly nodded and they immediately found a safe place for their group to land. Lin Feng's senses were growing dull, he then added, "We have to hurry. If we waste time, it will become more dangerous for us. We have to travel by foot the rest of the journey to Tianya Hage." Meng Qing and Noa Na obviously wouldn't argue. Even though it was dangerous to be on the ground, they had to keep moving. Lin Feng was at the front of the group, clearing a path for the two people behind him. Even though running at top speed also required him to use pure qi, it used a great deal less than flying through the sky. When flying they had to use qi to directly oppose gravity. In comparison, running didn't require much pure qi at all. It was much easier for the group to travel by land. A woo-woo. The howls of the wolves filled the air in every direction. Lin Feng was confronted with two fire wolves that were directly in their path. Even though the fire was burning around their bodies, that fire wasn't comparable to the Wolf King. Their bodies were much smaller in comparison to the other wolves as well, they were probably only fire wolves at the Ling level. "Get lost!" shouted Lin Feng. While releasing a pure qi which shot from Lin Feng's mouth with his words and crashed into the two fire wolves. They cried out painfully, as their bodies burst apart and transformed into flames which penetrated back into the ground. Those fire wolves were not beasts of flesh and blood, they were born from fire. What could cause fire to take the form of a beast? Thought Lin Feng. He was visibly shocked. When he attacked those two wolves, their bodies became fire which then shot back into the ground, their bodies had completely disappeared. Next time, I should pay closer attention, thought Lin Feng. As they continued to run forward, Lin Feng could sense the powerful fire qi of the wolves around him. He didn't try to avoid the fire wolves and instead, he immediately ran to fight them. Xian level fire wolves. Lin Feng sensed the qi coming from the direction of the fire wolf. It was definitely a Xian level fire wolf. When it came into vision, it had one tail. Lin Feng, without the slightest degree of hesitation, released a terrifying deadly energy which made the fire wolf retreat. It could sense that the energy was extremely dangerous. Lin Feng didn't stop there, he continued to shoot forward using the power of the wind. He immediately arrived next to the fire wolf, and his sword slashed down on the wolf. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng killed the wolf. A terrifying qi burst into the air. Lin Feng stared at the body and noticed as it started to disperse. The body transformed into fire and smoke. However, Lin Feng saw something strange. Inside the flames, there was a beautiful red crystal. When the crystal touched the ground, it disappeared just like the flames. What was that? Was it something valuable? Lin Feng was greatly shocked. That crystal seemed like it contained the power of the fire wolf. It contained an immense fire qi. If it really contained the fire qi of the wolf. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He looked at Meng Qing and Noa Na, who were still closely following behind him, and he dashed forwards. This time, he was directly searching for more fire wolves. They soon encountered another Xian-level fire wolf with one tail. Lin Feng quickly killed the wolf. This time, Lin Feng was testing a theory. After killing the beast, his silhouette flickered and he immediately grabbed the red crystal that appeared inside the flames. Lin Feng's body was surrounded by raging flames which began to transform into a small black lotus. Lin Feng slowly moved the red crystal closer to the black lotus. In a flash, the black lotus absorbed the crystal and the fire qi inside. Lin Feng had a huge smile on his face. The black lotus in his hand started to transform back into sun qi, which surrounded Lin Feng's body in the form of raging flames. Pure sun qi. It worked just as I expected, thought Lin Feng with a delighted expression. His gamble had paid off. Those red crystals were fire crystals and they were the core of the fire wolves, which contained all of their fire qi. Besides, Lin Feng's grim fire black lotus was able to absorb and process every kind of fire. It was able to transform the fire qi from the crystals into grim fire and then transform that grim fire back into sun qi. This would allow Lin Feng's cosmos-burning sun skill to grow more powerful. Lin Feng wanted his cosmos-burning sun skill to continuously advance. He wanted it to advance into a true sun skill. His sun qi would also grow stronger as he advanced. It was a symbiotic relationship. As his sun qi grew stronger, the skills would advance to higher levels, and as the skill advanced, the sun qi grew stronger. The sun qi and the cosmos-burning sun skill benefited as the other grew stronger. Lin Feng continued walking forwards. He had an idea. He wanted to stay in the desert and kill more fire wolves and collect their crystals. He could use this as an opportunity to enhance his sun qi. But Lin Feng wouldn't do that with Meng Qing by his side. It was too dangerous. She didn't need to brave such a dangerous situation. He kept moving forwards, while still paying attention to the wolves surrounding them. They made sure to avoid the more powerful fire wolves. And Lin Feng would kill the weaker ones with a single sword strike. As long as the wolves hadn't reached a level 3 Xian beast, they wouldn't have the ability to defend against Lin Feng's sword. Sometimes, they would encounter groups of fire wolves, but Lin Feng would kill them all in the blink of an eye. He was like a meteor shooting through the sky. Lin Feng continued to absorb the crystals he gathered without hesitation. After some time, Lin Feng had already absorbed several dozen fire crystals. He could clearly sense that his sun qi was growing more intense and the flames grew more powerful. His sword skills, which used sun qi and his black lotus power, were advancing to higher levels. Lin Feng was impatient to increase his power.